Well, good morning. It's a wonderful day and I love my job. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Any additions to the agenda? I'll start with Rudy there first.
Yes, good morning, Reeve and Council. I have a few additions from the administrative side. First of all, item 33F, adding to meeting dates an invitation from our Member of Parliament, Dane Lloyd, regarding an annual barbecue coming up this June 26th. Add that to the agenda, please. A deletion to item 34. Item A, Air Cadets is not prepared to come to council, so that leaves an adjustment on the other two items. So Township Road 474 will be A, item A under 34, and item B will be the municipal partnership opportunity. Just for council's information, legislation has now passed to remove FOIP, so now we are operating under the Access to Information Act, so the ATIA acronym is Access to Information Act.
I'm not sure what to call it, but the town was talking about they got a grant. Did we get a similar grant?
I'm not certain which grant you're referring to, Reeve.
Okay. Well, it's something we can look into afterwards.
Okay.
All right. Councillors, anything to add? Anthony?
I would like to add aggregate bylaw for discussion and probably under Public Works. Would that be the correct place to put it? Okay, planning and, okay, so it'd be 6E.
Aggregate extraction?
Aggregate bylaw.
All right, anything else, folks? Nothing, a motion to accept the agenda with the amendments. Glenn?
I move to approve the agenda with the amendments.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Carried, do you have something to say?
No, I was ready for the next motion.
Oh, okay. So the next one is the minutes of the council meeting, June 3rd.
If there's no errors or omissions, I move the minutes as presented.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimous. All right, the follow-up action list, Rudy, you want to shed some light on anything that's critical?
Thank you, Reeve. A couple of items that have been completed and are before council this morning. First of all, motion 124 regarding the incentive options for cleanup. That will be before council for discussion this morning. As well, motion number 193 regarding the Violet Grove Transfer Station. Public Works coming with an update this morning. As well, regarding the Cynthia sidewalks and the pending liability. Council was updated via email on that issue, and that item continues to move forward. And permit 25D, additional information is being provided to council on today's agenda.
Which one was that last one there, Rudy?
25D was the permit application from Lafarge.
Okay. Any comments? Motion to accept the follow-up action list as presented. Donna? Little premature on that voting, I'd say.
I move to approve the follow-up action list as presented.
Okay, go for it. All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Okay, that takes us to delegations at 10. Do you have anything else to report, Rudy? Okay, so then we've got planning and development, rezoning southwest of 28. Take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, Raven Council. Rezoning application 25A-004, which is located on pages 19 through 32 of the agenda package, has been submitted to rezone approximately 11.4 acres from agricultural to agricultural holdings within a portion of Southwest 3847-4 west of the 5th Meridian, which would allow for the subdivision of an equally sized parcel. These subject lands are located immediately east of Township or Range Road 44 and immediately north of Township Road 474, from which all parcels will have access. and that is shown on the land location map on page 21. The proposed rezoning is consistent with the county's municipal development plan, and the lands do not fall within any intermunicipal development plan or area structure plan. The assessment of county policy is reflected in appendices E and F on pages 28 through 32. A public hearing for this bylaw has been scheduled for July 15th, 2025 at 10 a.m. should council proceed with first reading today. So it is presented today that council give first reading to bylaw 1212-25 for the rezoning of approximately 11.4 acres from agricultural to agricultural holdings within a portion of Southwest 2847-4 west of the 5th meridian. Thank you.
Dallas?
Yeah, I'll move first reading. So I'll move that council give first reading for bylaw 1212-25, proposing part of Southwest 2847-4 west of the 5th meridian, plus or minus 11.4 acres, plus or minus 4.62 hectares, be rezoned from agricultural to agricultural holdings as shown in the attached Schedule A.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Development permit application for Lafarge?
Yes. Development permit application 25D-017, which is located on pages 33 through 49 of the agenda package, is returning to council today following a tabling motion on May 6th. The tabling of this application was to allow for administration to work with the applicant to confirm two issues identified as requiring amendment or confirmation. The first item is the requirement for legal counsel for the county to review the proposed liability clauses, which would be included in the agreements referenced in the proposed conditions of approval. Appendix B on pages 38 and 39 contain the wording for these clauses, and the response provided by the lawyer who reviewed the terminology and which was provided by the Lafarge solicitor is also included. The second item was the alignment of the new Range Road 60A to ensure safe public access to the Barrymore Day Use Area and North Saskatchewan Boat Launch, and the alignment of the existing road allowances with consideration for the water bodies. The applicant has prepared the maps attached in Appendix A on pages 36 and 37. As per Condition 5 in Appendix C, the new alignment of Range Road 60A will be required prior to any extraction taking place on existing Range Road 60A. This condition has been slightly reworded based on the advice of Brazeau County's legal counsel. All other conditions are the same as originally presented on May the 6th. The details of the agreement to be entered into will address the specifics, including how the water bodies will be finished, and that is set out in the comments provided by the Public Works Manager as shown on page 34. Condition 6 establishes the requirements for plans for the alignment of Township Road 502A. If council is satisfied that the plan on page 37 shows the appropriate realignment of the Range Road 60 road allowance around the water body identified as water body D, a motion could be made to add the words "and new Range Road 60" after new Township Road 502A in conditions 5A and B sub 1. The realignment of that road allowance will need to be approved by Alberta Transportation in addition to the agreement to be entered into with Brazeau County. So, in conclusion, administration presents the application for development permit 25D-017 for natural resource extraction and natural resource processing continued operation and expansion and demolition of 2 residential and 3 accessory structures on the 9 titled parcels, with a list of recommended conditions in Appendix C attached as pages 40 through 49 of the agenda package for council's review and consideration. Thank you.
So of all the concerns, like there was one there on 39 I had underlined here about strongly recommend that the county's insurer provide you with a summary of the levels of insurance that will be required of Lafarge to cover. Has that been addressed? That's on page 39.
To the chair, I was not involved in the discussions with the lawyer, but I do believe that that would be part of the agreements that would be entered into, not a condition of the development permit.
Okay, so who would have had the discussions with the legal counsel?
Pippa was
Pippa? Oh, okay.
engaged in those
Maybe just
discussions.
shed some light on that there. We're always concerned about liability and,
Yeah, for sure. So had Lafarge legal counsel provide an example of the wording that they would be entering into an agreement with Public Works, and then we had our legal counsel review that. And as for reviewing it with our insurance, so that would be done prior to Public Works entering into our agreement with Lafarge. So that side is not being completed yet, but it's part of what we'll be doing with our agreement, not the development permit, but the one with Public Works. Yeah, yeah.
Page 37, so Lake K is going to be partially filled in as well to make sure that the road allowance won't be in the water?
That's right. I do have that in writing on my phone on an email with Brock. So water body F would be moving slightly in there, and water body K would be moving, so that wouldn't be in the undeveloped road allowance. And then the only one that would be left within the road allowance would be water body D, which we're doing Lafarge will be doing a realignment around, and all the costs associated and work associated will be on Lafarge to do that.
What about water body C? That still seems to be across the road.
We are waiting for the final drone thing on that. They're looking into how they can move and fill that one in right now. I don't have the final wording on that, but they're trying to move that one out of the undeveloped road allowance as well. And I've had confirmation from Alberta Transportation that any enforcement of water bodies left within an undeveloped road allowance would be through Alberta Transportation and DTO. So advising them, they're able to enforce on a company being able to remove any water bodies out of undeveloped road allowances.
Because that would be my concern, that those road allowances are free from a water body.
Yeah. And I do have that, my phone's just over there, but I do have confirmation from Brock that they will be doing that.
Okay, thank you.
No motion. I move that development permit 25D-017 proposing a natural resource extraction and natural resource processing continued operation and expansion and demolition of 2 residential and 3 accessory structures on Lot 1 and 2, Block 1, Plan 8220824 within Southwest 13 of 50 of 6 west of the 5th Meridian, subdivisions 3 and 4 within Southwest 1850 of 5 west of the 5th, Northwest 750 of 5 west of the 5th, Southeast and Southwest 13 of 50 of 6 west of the 5th, Northeast and Northwest 12 of 50 of 6 west of the 5th Meridian be approved, subject to the conditions listed in Appendix C.
all those in favor? Carried unanimous. Go ahead, Anthony.
This is probably for Pippa as well. In reading this, then, have you checked to make sure that since that road's 502 in particular was only closed temporary with the intention of rebuilding, now that it's going to be left not rebuilt, do we need to close it permanently, or what's the status requirement of that road?
We do not need to close the undeveloped road allowance. Those are allowed to remain open. I've had emails with Alberta Transportation about that. And then we can approve, Brazeau County Administration can approve the new road and leaving that one open. But it'll be left, it won't be a drivable road, right? That's going to be all reclaimed.
It'll be able to, for people to walk or drive down with a quad or something like that?
That's right, yeah.
But
It
it's
won't be
not-
an actual 2 minimum stand, it won't be to like a 7-meter road stand on top of it like that, yeah.
And, okay, that pretty much covers it. Then we don't have to do the temporary closure will come off, and it's just the same as any other undeveloped road allowance?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We'll move forward with the community standard bylaw.
Good morning, Raven Council. So the first report is the Community Standards Bylaw Incentive Options for Unsightly Premise, and it is on page 50 to 59 of your agenda package. This came out of discussion on the Community Standards Bylaw at the March 4th council meeting, and there was a motion there to direct administration to bring back incentive options to help deal with debris and garbage cleanup. We started by doing some research to see if other municipalities had successful initiative programs in place and research ideas that would support landowners in cleaning up the properties. There is a list of 6 different options that were explored on page 50, and I'll walk you through kind of what they are and some informal internal referral comments that came out of it. So the first is the annual Roundup event. This event is organized by the Public Works Department here at the county and often happens in June, and happened in June this year. The opportunity is for residents to utilize the existing transfer stations and allows people to bring items that are generally not accepted. This evolved out of a community cleanup day, but it provides an opportunity for all of Brazeau County residents to utilize the opportunity instead of a small-scale community cleanup. It also reduces liability for the county. Attached to this report is Appendix A, which contains information related to occupational health and safety codes, the National Safety Code, and the Department of Transportation regulations with respect to providing support to clean up and haul away items from private property. The annual Roundup event balances both staff and resources to assist with eliminating some of the barriers to removing items from properties. The next option, again on page 51, is the landfill voucher. So this concept is a voucher for the Aspen Waste landfill, which would allow an option outside of the annual Roundup for items the transfer station could not accommodate. In order to put this forward, we would need to put a procedure in place, and there were concerns raised about how this initiative would work, considering the Aspen Waste Transfer landfill is not owned by or operated by the county, and concerns about paying for and tracking the tipping fees, along with who would receive the incentive and whether there would be a limit to how much they could take under a transfer landfill voucher. So if this were to be an interest of council, some additional research would need to be put in place and discussion to move forward. Continuing along is equipment rentals. Staff looked into the idea of setting up a rental program for equipment for cleaning up a yard, similar to the Agricultural Services Department's rental program for agricultural equipment, such as like skunk traps and that type of stuff. The main comment that we received from the internal referral process was that private companies already offer this service and whether we should be competing as a municipality against local business operations. The other concern was whether the maintenance of the equipment would be taking away mechanics' time from working on equipment required by the county during their busy spring and summer season. The third concern raised during referrals was the liability related to equipment rental. However, this did spark the idea of maybe a partnership with local businesses, which will be the next one on page 52. So partnering with local businesses to provide a lower cost to remove larger items such as scrap metal or derelict vehicles. Of course, this would need to be discussed with local businesses to determine if there was interest and what the partnership would be. We would want to consider an approach that was equitable to local business as well as beneficial to the county. So a little bit more research would be required and discussion required on that option. Moving on to the property beautification program. So the county would create a property beautification program similar to our citizen appreciation program or Communities in Bloom on a local scale. This would be done through nominations being submitted and the review process. Based on preliminary comments from internal referral process, this type of incentive program generally provides an incentive for people who already have a clean and tidy yard to continue to make additional improvements. It typically does not incentivize people to improve unsightly properties. The next option is educational material, and whereas not a true incentive, this could provide clear and helpful information to landowners who receive a notification letter from the county about the property. Public Works does have a brochure with information on it regarding the transfer stations, when they're open, what they take. The idea would be to compress it down into a simple, easy, and relevant cleanup material, one-page information handout that could be provided to landowners within that notification. The idea is that providing the information so they don't have to search for it, and removing one kind of barrier to the cleanup. The other option is to potentially incorporate with educational material is if there's a partnership opportunity, providing the contact information for local companies that would be able to assist, reducing the requirement to review and research on the landowner's part of who could provide that assistance. The last one I'm going to present is on page 53 and continues on to page 54, which is the derelict residential tax subclass. So this was found through administration's research and then brought up by Councillor Gunderson at the May 3rd council meeting. And the City of Edmonton has implemented a derelict residential subclass, which allows the city to charge a higher tax rate to owners and properties that they have assessed as derelict. If the property is cleaned up, the owner can get a refund of the taxes paid at the higher rate for the months of the year after they cleaned up the property. This process is based on assessment, not problem property. So it doesn't look at anything that would be a fire risk, a public health risk, or criminal activity, or any properties that get frequent or serious complaints and or safety concerns. Those are defined as problem properties, not derelict properties under the city's enforcement of properties, and it is solely based on the assessment of the physical condition of the home on the property. I say home because it is a residential focused tax. So some considerations for Brazeau County. The majority of our complaints received are not related to the condition of a building on the property, but the accumulation of material debris and refuse. If this were to be implemented, it would need to be completed by the tax department, as it would be separate from the community standards bylaw as it relates to the assessed derelict condition of a building. So the next steps moving forward, the current concern file process is complaint driven, which would need to be considered when determining incentives, if any were to be implemented. It is also recommended that for the majority, other than the educational material, that a policy or a procedure is created for any type of incentive to aid in the cleanup of property, to outline the criteria around the incentive and provide clear and clean direction to anybody involved. I am happy to answer questions, and then Appendix A, of course, is the occupational health and safety codes, the national safety codes, and the Department of Transportation regulations.
Lots of options. Just my initial comments is that if we're going to incentivize those that have a mess, how do we compensate those that are doing a good job? You know, so, you know, like maybe a consistent voucher to everybody. And if you're doing a good job, great, you can use it for whatever you need to use it for in regards to cleaning up more. But I don't want to punish those that are doing a good job, and that's probably 90% of the people, you know, in our community. And so if we're going to do it for those that aren't doing a good job, I think we should do it with those that are doing a good job. What's your thoughts there, councillors? That's just my initial reaction. Glenn?
With our assessment, assessors, how many properties in Brazeau County have they determined are derelict? Have we got any, or do they do that for us?
Through the chair to Councillor Gunderson, I don't have that information. I would have to consult with our tax department.
Okay. Yeah, originally I was very much for the equipment rental thing where we could drop in a bin to their property and deal with that, but after reading the report, I can see that there'd be issues with liability. You'd never know what was thrown into that container, and seeing some of the chemical barrels and stuff around the properties, it would be, I wouldn't want staff handling that in particular. So I guess that was out of it. But I do like the idea of the landfill vouchers. For me, you know, if somebody does have a notice or a complaint, or we're going after them, we can at least say that, you know, we have these vouchers available for these specific cases to help people out. And I do like the derelict residential tax subclass. I realize that doesn't work on a complaint-based thing, but if our assessors deem that the property is derelict, then we would have some way of dealing with it, an effective way as well. But thank you, that's a great report.
Kara?
Maybe just a little bit of insight, just because I've actually experienced it, and I didn't realize just how expensive it was to take stuff in. So, yeah, we just redid a deck, so it was about £1,500, because I actually looked at the receipt, because I was a little bit shocked, but it was $160 to go dispose of my rotting deck, because I didn't want to burn it, because it was full of paint and nails, so, I was actually quite surprised how expensive it was to drop it off, but I see why people tend to accumulate some stuff.
Donna?
The landfill voucher would have been really nice when we had our fire and had to take, I mean, it was thousands and
Yes.
thousands to get rid of that stuff. The derelict residential tax subclass, I just find that, don't know how to say this correctly, but people who have such a mess that they can't get it cleaned up, sometimes can't, have problems paying their taxes. So doubling their taxes or making it harder, I don't think is the answer. The rest of the stuff I really like.
But we have to pick what we
But
want to.
not the machinery, yeah, not machinery, like you said. Yeah, just my
Good,
thoughts.
good comments. Just I was thinking, like lately, I've been cleaning up my farm, just selling stuff. And metal necks, I use them, not that I'm advertising for them, but there's money in that. Even the old junky cars, you get $150 for, you know. So a part of it is the education that people need to know, like, there's some value to junk being hauled in now, and it's a way to clean up your place. So combining that with a voucher, and I don't know if we have to do all of these things here, but combining a voucher with, you know, we're kind of the chop hill farmers here, right? We coax people to the table. The assessment one, that starts to get kind of tricky, because then it's a judgment call, you know. And I don't think assessors do that, but they might. But at least if they do it, we could just get copies of what they think is derelict and then do something later to see what that's all about. But the voucher is a coaxing method that will help everybody, both good and bad. And the education on, like, especially with iron, like, you know, there's quite a business. I know you haul in lots of stuff, Donna. I've been hauling in lots of stuff, and it's a way to clean up the yard and get rid of some of that junk that sits there forever. You know, I started looking around. If I haven't used something in the last 20 years, it's time for it to go, you know. So I'll go to Anthony, then back to Donna.
I think we're going beyond a complaint-driven process. I'd like to see us stay with that part. As far as what I'm going to call more of the urban settings, like our hamlets, I think that's where, if we did a little more education in terms of making them aware of some of the products they have there are worth money, like you've said, Bart, I think that would help give them the reasons or incentives to clean it up in a more productive way. And maybe when they're getting rid of the car, the old car, whatever, if they've got something there, maybe they can make arrangements with the people that are cleaning up the desired parts, that they would also take the rest of it and dispose of it accordingly. Make, you know, like a complete cleanup, rather than, like, I would hate to see a lot of this stuff starting to go to landfills and filling up landfills. You know, granted, maybe that's what landfills are for, but we're also filling up landfills at a pretty fast pace. And some of these products, in my opinion, are better disposed of in other ways, maybe even burnt. Like, wood can be burnt. I don't get why we wouldn't, you know, when you get suitable days, get a permit and burn it. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with most of that. They dump it in my lease roads. That's another way to get rid of the garbage.
So I would not be in favor of going with these packages. I think it's good information, but I think what we should be doing is going with a information blitz that would help people understand opportunities to clean up their properties and the value of it. Value meaning dollars in cleaning up the product that's laying there, and go that route. And then just leave, like, I don't want to go into where we're having the assessors pick properties. That already is just starting to now, or make it look like we're looking for derelict properties. I think leave it alone, let it, whatever we have to deal with, come by complaints.
So there's a lot of choices we have to make here too. So Do we want to do the disincentive, and that's the assessors deeming something
No.
as being, so who agrees with Anthony? Okay, Glenn?
So on the assessor thing, like I said, they're just going around and they're looking for properties that are deserted or abandoned, partially or fully boarded up or secure, found to be unfit for habitation, abandoned partway through construction or demolition. So these are properties in these hamlets that are like that, and there's no recourse for us to deal with this, other than letting them sit there for the next 30 years as is, and there's lots of those examples, or else increase the taxes to incentivize them to either sell the property or fix the property. So I'm very much in favor of us looking into a dialect residential tax subclass. I'm not ready to go for it, but I'd like some more information on it.
Okay.
So if I can, I'll move that
Well,
administration
just wait
brings
here, we'll
back.
get the other discussion
Okay.
first, and then I'll come back to you, Glenn. So Donna, then back to Anthony.
I was just gonna say, maybe we could have a voucher for, renting a trailer from one of the rental companies, and give them a little voucher to help renting the trailer.
Yeah, the voucher could work, but I wouldn't pick and choose what they're gonna use their voucher
Oh,
on,
true.
right?
Okay.
So somebody might just need some help to pay their tipping fee like Kara talked about, you know? So maybe a $250 voucher or something
For anything,
for
okay.
for anybody. and
But they would
anything.
have to prove that they,
Well, you don't want to get too onerous, right? It has to be going to the dump, one way or another. It has to,
or Metal X.
or some other choice. I don't know if there's other scrap guys or not. But Anthony, go ahead.
Again, like with the situation that Glenn has just mentioned earlier about the buildings that are kind of left or half-built or whatever, we have started to get more sort of now in our expectations of cleanup when we've sent out letters, at least some from the ones I've seen. So I think we need to be more sort of in those individuals, not just, oh, please clean up, and I see you've moved the 2x4 around. In other words, have clear expectations that if they don't clean up that house, in other words, knock it down, take it out of there, we'll enforce it, and we'll do it. So if we start doing those types of approaches, those buildings won't be left there. But we've been for too long in this situation where we've been too nice, and we said, oh, we see that you've tried, and it snowed, and it's this, and it's that, and we've made excuses for them. They don't need excuses, the people that we are usually in conflict with. So that's where we need to start showing the assertiveness, the will to do it for them and charge it on their tax bill, and that gets rid of that problem. And I think we're moving in that direction.
Well, I don't know if we're moving in that direction yet. I'm still a coaxer, right? Not a dictator kind of thing, saying, I don't like what you got, you have to do it or we're gonna get you. You know, and that's the mentality, that's the two choices you have, the carrot or the stick. But I'll put up each one for a vote anyway, then you know where everybody's sitting at. So you still got more to say, Anthony? No? So I don't know how you guys want to handle this, but I thought with all these different choices, which ones are out and which ones are a consideration. And I'll just start with one at a time here. Well, the first one, the annual roundup, that one doesn't always work for everybody. I've never been able to hit them. I'm always busy on those weekends. So, but it's not about me, it's about the people. So, vouchers for Aspen Waste, I'm just gonna go to the first one that's there. So, is anybody in favor of supplying a $200 or $250 voucher for people to get rid of their mess, or at least help a bit? Glenn?
I move to direct administration to bring back options for landfill vouchers for council's consideration.
Thanks, Glenn. Discussion, Donna?
So would that would mean everybody gets a voucher,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's a lot of
Or why not
vouchers.
just the people that are given notices? to clean up.
Oh,
Why not just, like I said, here's an option? That's all I'm saying, is that would be one of the options for administration that could bring back, is that if we're gonna go after a property owner, then at least we can say, you gotta clean up by this date, but we also have these vouchers available to help with bin rental or disposal rental.
and
Just an
then
incentive, so it wouldn't,
Go ahead, Donna.
I think our homeowners would say, well, look at this mess and he gets a voucher.
I think most people would be happy just to have their neighbor clean up the mess beside them. I don't think they would want to bin themselves. They would go, you know, I know that there's property owners there that are sitting there right beside a complete mess. So if that was an option to
True.
help them clean up, it would help them with their property value. They'd be super happy with that. So like I said, just options from administration to bring back for consideration. But I think all of this is a great conversation.
Anthony and then Kara.
I can think of landowners that are perhaps in my division in Dallas is for just, situations that I'm more aware of, that I don't think these vouchers would make the difference for them. Their mindset is already that they are collecting this products for, basically, I'm going to call it, even though they don't say it so, salvage purposes. And when they're doing it for that purpose, these vouchers don't help them. And they've got more, and those are usually the properties that we're getting, I'm going to say, at least in my division, I can know for that firsthand, those are some that we're acting on right now because of the unsightly properties. So this salvage voucher isn't going to do nothing for looking at a couple of those properties and saying, here's help. So all we're doing is, like, be effective and use the tool we have got, which is enforcement. To me, that we're not in the business of cleaning people's properties up. That's their responsibilities.
Kara, you got a solution for us?
No, but I was just gonna suggest if you're looking at the vouchers, that people have to come in and apply for them. We're not just gonna go and hand out
Okay.
vouchers. That if you go and you come back and bring a receipt in here, that's the other thing is, I'm not handing out receipts without proof that people have actually done something, so. My suggestion would be they would have to come here, and it'd be like a grant, they would have to apply, they'd have to produce proof that they've cleaned up.
Okay, that might be a solution. Dallas, you got something to say?
I have something to say. Yeah, some of the large properties that I've seen all throughout Brazeau County have been, a voucher wouldn't, be a spit in the bucket. It's not enough. I just don't see that. I think it's just more work than it's really worth.
That's like saving the starfish. I saved that one. Maybe it doesn't save them all.
don't.
It doesn't save them all, but it maybe helps those that really need some help.
Yeah, so we'd be thinking about a voucher of $250, $1,000, because I've seen properties that are close to me that are a disaster. The owners couldn't maintain the properties, they couldn't use the properties, they had to sell. That's the hard reality of life. And then somebody bought it and cleaned the entire mess up, and it cost a fortune. A voucher just isn't gonna fix that.
Donna?
Well, if they're, if they're running a salvage business, they have to have an industrial property, right? And if they're not, if they're not industrial, then they should have some kind of fine. Or like you say, Anthony, like, we have that opportunity to enforce, which, now that I'm looking at it, that's better, enforcement.
Well, Glenn, did your motion pass to have administration? Now, are you lying now, or were you lying then? Huh? Thanks, Mrs. Honesty over there. Anthony?
To comment on Donna's statement, the people that have what I referenced as salvage yards, based on our bylaw and our definition and our wordings in our community standards bylaw, aren't considered as salvage yards. They aren't required to get a permit for a salvage yard. They are allowed to have this type of setup on agricultural lands under certain circumstances, which are generally pretty liberal. So I don't see, Donna, what you're saying is they're just able to do what they want to do on ag lands. Putting it bluntly. What we should be doing for some of those places, and I remember one of them specifically, I had suggested to the person in one of them in my division quite 3, 4, 5 years ago, when it was still being advanced in terms of its growth, the size of stuff being accumulated, that we should be going out there and suggesting they get a salvage or whatever correct terminology is for within our permitting system, for them to have like a junkyard, for whatever the right term is. And they weren't encouraged to do that. They were allowed to continue without that. And there were various reasons given by our CAO and staff, which I didn't think they were exactly, how would I put it, valid ones, but they were ones that they had concerns, and rather than acting on the situation, they just let the situation deteriorate, or we just let the situation deteriorate. So I think we need to be more, if we want to be saying we want to deal with those situations, we can't let them get to the point where they are the deteriorated state. And those were complaints already on that property. It wasn't like we would have to go out there and act on it our own. Property complaints were coming in fairly early on the one that I'm thinking of on the north end.
So there's a motion on the floor still? Oh, Glenn, go ahead.
So yeah, this is basically the motion, the idea of it was to have administration bring back some ideas, either a voucher for landfill or trailer rental or some sort of equipment rental or help them with. So I move to I move to direct administration to investigate options into landfill vouchers and bring back for council's consideration.
Okay, that was the motion that you put on earlier?
Yeah.
So a motion on top of the motion, just to be assertive, eh? I think you get fined for that, Glenn. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion is lost. The people for vouchers was Kara, Bart, and Glenn. So I'm, now that it's lost, is the whole thing lost? All this work administration is done? Oh. Yeah, well, there's different points. Equipment rentals. Somebody can throw a motion on the floor, or if not, we'll just move on to the next one. So I think somebody said liability might be an issue. I think that might get convoluted. But if somebody wants to support that, put a motion for it. Anthony, then Glenn?
Oh, do I am, sorry.
I want to go to the next one.
Okay, so, partnerships with companies. Is that the one you want to talk about? Go ahead, Anthony.
Okay, with that one, how would that work to administration? How would that work for liabilities to the county? If private contractor goes out there, we might pay, let's say this $200 voucher or whatever there, but the liability would be between that landowner and that contractor, right?
So through the chair to Councillor Heinrich, I don't want to speak absolute specifics because I'm not a lawyer. I'd want to get confirmation on that, but we do have third parties that have gone out to do cleanups for us under a court order. So we would just need to make sure that we had some sort of contract in place, an agreement that covered the insurance component, working with our legal team to ensure that all I's would be dotted and all T's would be crossed if we were sending somebody out on behalf of the county. The other option would be to have a list of companies that we know what they do, kind of like our list of surveyors or our planning consultants or engineers that we have, that we can offer to people saying, you know, Metal Next does this type of work. ACR offers these types of rentals, and have a list of local cleanup companies. So some of our letters, we do let landowners know, especially if we know they're not local, we have three, companies that we have worked with, we have discussed cleanup properties with, so we do offer their contact information to people if they're not local to assist with cleanups. So it could be something along those lines of partnering with them, and then what the liability would be, I would want to consult our legal team before I confirm anything on that front of whether any of the liability could come back to the county, or if it would solely be between landowner A and consultant B.
And would that only be for properties that with these unsightly complaints, or just anybody could come in and get that, let's say, incentive?
I mean, I hire people, I don't think there'd be any liability that would come back to the county, because I'm doing that anyway. All we're talking about is possibly subsidizing it a bit. You know?
Okay, Bart, my other question was though, would we be doing that only for the unsightly premises or just everybody?
Well, eventually they all become unsightly. What's that? Glenn, Glenn, go ahead.
Well, next on the list is beautification incentives, so we're going down that path, right? You just gotta draw that line and don't cross it. That's my position on it. I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole.
That's what I'm getting at with an roundabout asking. I'm saying, where do we stop? And, you know, I just tried to suggest that we might even be liable. That's what I was unsure of, because I'm not a lawyer either. So I was concerned about if we start funding it and we get individuals that are doing the work that are less than, let's say, proficient at their job, there could be liabilities incurred both to that person because they may have damaged additional properties on the land. And then, of course, since the county is a part of it, that's always the deep pocket they would want to come after. So I'm not sure we want to get into this. I think we have the process for enforcement, and that's the tool we have the most protection under as well.
Well, I always like vouchers. And I'm just saying that because it helps a bit, right? And it's also an education tool where people say, hey, you know, the county will give you $250 to help clean up your mess. Not much, but it's better than nothing. Anthony?
You know, I would move that we direct administration to look at, checking into legalities of putting recommended or possible companies that might be willing to do cleanups on properties, and that we check into the county's liability if we provide this list.
Dallas?
I think we already know the answer to that. So let's just save the legal fees and the time spent at administration and stop right now.
Okay, Anthony wants to withdraw his motion.
I withdraw it.
So are we asking administration to do anything? Boy, I'll tell you, negative Nancy's. Glenn?
So I'm not saying that we need to do the derelict residential tax subclass. I'm just saying that the enforcement that we had for the past 25 years isn't working. I can't stress that enough. I kept hearing about enforcement. It's not working. It hasn't worked. We've had abandoned houses in Rocky Rapids, abandoned houses in Cynthia, and Lodgepole, and all over. So I just want to have administration look into this. We're not doing this, but look into it a little bit further with our tax assessors and bring back some more information. So please consider that. I move to direct administration to bring back information on derelict residential tax subclasses for council's consideration.
Donnie, you want to say something?
So I don't think we need to look at derelict places. Neighbors will be looking at it and bring it to the county's, to the county. And I agree with Anthony that it all comes down to enforcement, but perhaps we can get a faster way to enforce, like 6 years for that place in Lodgepole. And we ended up cleaning it. And the people who bought it, bless their hearts, they have cleaned it up. They have paid for the back taxes and the cleanup. And then, yeah, the buyer had to pay for everything in the end. So I just think there must be a way to enforce faster. Not be unreasonable, but not be overly giving.
Anthony?
Council over the years has gone back and forth like the gate swinging. Council at one time was very forgiving, and then they had brought in a staff person that was going to go out and had done quite an aggressive, I'm going to say, approach to getting things cleaned up. Then this council of recent times has said, no, we don't want to go there. We want to be more forgiving. And now, in even more recent times, we've said to staff, be more aggressive. Write a letter saying that it ain't good enough to move the 2I from one place to the other. And that's what I've seen now with the last letters that I've seen in my division. I think we need to make our minds up as a council, and not just from today and last meeting, over a period of 25 years. That's what we need to look at. For us to keep saying from over a short period of time it ain't good enough is the problem. And we're the problem, council is. And it's time that we start seeing it that way and stop trying to put incentives in place. We have the tools. And they just have to be ready to accept the required support that staff needs to get out there and act on those situations with the force that they need and in a timely fashion. We've given them that. They're starting to act on it with the letters I've seen in my division going out. I see that we need to now give them the time to do that, and we need to make sure that we stick with that. And I think there's no need for us now to look at developing this policy. It's a good report, and I think we should just receive it for information. And let staff do their job and support them. I think you have someone at the podium there?
At the podium? Oh, I couldn't see your light there.
No problem. Sorry about that. I just wanted to put a point of clarification to council because I know there's a lot going on with the community standards realm right now. So this currently in front of you is the incentive report. The other report in your current agenda today is the community standards bylaw. And then the the education and enforcement policy is the other thing that we have been working on. Council did get a red line version of it. I apologize, I cannot remember the date of the meeting that came from in front of council, but that is going to come back to council, addressing some of the things Councillor Wiltsey and Councillor Heinrich have mentioned about, can we do this faster? Can we have a more streamlined enforcement process? That is being put in place within our policy. So I do apologize. It is 3 different documents, 3 different mechanisms in which we are looking at for community standards and for these situations, but there are different mechanisms coming at different times, but we are trying to work with what council has directed us to do in different realms to see if we can help ensure that these cleanups that do occur within the county.
Yeah, so in regard to the instance that Councillor Wiltsey was speaking about, part of the problem was, in that situation, was the province was getting in our way.
So through the chair to Councillor Ekstrom, for that particular property, it wasn't necessarily the province was getting in our way. The direction we had was that if changes had happened on the property that and improvements happened, we would continue to give extensions. And so that is the mechanism and process we did under the policy, was to provide extensions to that individual. They were very wise of the ways and how to do things. But ultimately what really, really slowed it down was, yes, the court process. So that is the realm of the province. They definitely slowed it down. The situation of ownership of the land, if I can phrase it like that, slowed it down slightly as well within the court system. And our legal team thought that they could get compliance without going to the court, so they tried one more thing, which then prolonged it even further. Lessons definitely learned from that procedure, that we will say, no, we have provided enough opportunities. Thank you, legal counsel. We are requesting to go to the courts. And we will work with the legal team who agrees with us on that one, once we get to that point, because it will be a council motion to go to the courts, based on our policy that we currently have.
And thanks.
Yeah, that's, she explained it well. I mean, that was our own doings again, and we were trying to be more, this before we got into the more sort of request to clean places up. And because, little things were done, we didn't act as quickly as we are now. I have a property now in my division that the new owners barely got their ink dry on their property, and they've been told what they got to do, and fairly assertively. That's the approach that I almost feel sorry for that person, but it's the approach that I think the person saw what they were buying. They probably got the property at a price that they wouldn't have normally paid for it either. So they probably got it at a reduced value, and now they have a responsibility to clean it up. And so as far as I'm concerned, there's no need for us to be doing any of these actions on these pages here. It's a good report. We just have to support staff, and therefore I move to receive the community standards. Oh, sorry, I didn't say, remember that, sorry.
Point of order. Who put the motion on the floor? What was your motion again, Glenn?
Okay.
We seem to be,
It's not to do anything other than just have administration bring back some more information, just so I understand how the derelict residential tax subclass works. And I want to know how it works with our assessors and what the benefits and disadvantages of such a program would be. So the motion is, I move to direct administration to investigate derelict residential tax subclasses and bring back for council's consideration.
more work, more money. Any support? All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, I think we're just getting too carried away with this. I don't want to move to a police state, and Anthony talked about that in a way that we had some people that their assessments were quite aggressive. And once we start moving down that path, it just doesn't stop. And you can't dictate what staff are going to be here or not be here, you know, and they could be aggressive, like Anthony raised the issue once before, or not. So I'm just concerned that as we start policing our people more and more, it's going to require some effort and work and time from staff, and secondly, it sends the wrong signal. We're the coaxing council. So we still have no motions on the floor right now. Anthony?
Bart, we're all made aware of what staff is doing in terms of the letters they send out to the various individuals. So council is aware of what actions are being carried out within our county. We have given staff clear direction to be more assertive in getting these properties cleaned up. Now we need to follow that. We can't keep going back and forth. And we need to show that we mean for the derelict house, if you want to refer to some of those houses as derelict house that's half-built and not continued or finished, that we want them finished, or they're going to be tore down and at their expense. So we've got that going, and let's let that work and see how it plays out. So with that, I move that we receive the Community Standards Bylaw Incentive Options for Unsighted Premises Report for information.
The only comment I have to make is each council thinks that what they decided is the right one, and that next council should actually follow through with what this council is actually suggesting. You said that in your discussion there, Anthony, is that we know what's going on. Each council says that. They say we should follow the direction of the last council and be consistent. But anyway, you've got a motion on the floor. I'm going to support you anyway, Anthony. All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Look, we're putting the staff to sleep here. Are we keeping you guys awake? Do you need a 5-minute break? Oh, we got a public hearing here, I think. We'll get through the public hearing first. So somebody has to make a motion to go into public hearing. Anthony,
Move to go into public hearing for bylaw 1211-25, speed limit bylaw.
discussion? All those in favor? We're trying to make up time, were we, Pippa?
Brazeau County Administration proposed an amendment to the speed limit bylaw in a section of Range Road 73, the Ring Road. The portion extends from approximately 2.4 kilometers south of the intersection of 50th Avenue in Township 490, north to the intersection of Helena Drive. The proposed change would increase the speed limit from 50 kilometers per hour to 60 kilometers an hour, and that aligns with the recent change of the Town of Drayton Valley portion as well. So this is the only remaining portion that is at the 50 kilometers per hour. Recently, the public hearing was advertised in the Breton Booster and the Free Press on May 28th and 29th and June 4th and 5th. So we're here for the public hearing today. As of this date, administration has not received any concerns or comments regarding the proposed change. And we're looking for council to give second and third reading to bylaw 121125 to establish maximum speed limits as presented.
Questions, first of all? Because we have to come out of public hearing if you're going to make a motion. Okay, no questions?
And I should mention, I did not put it in my report, but we talked about implementing this at the time of the completion of the construction of the pathway in that area too.
Okay, that's when you'll implement the speed changes. All right, so any other questions? If not, a motion to come out of public hearing? Donna?
I move to come out of public hearing for bylaw 1211-25.
Discussion? All those in favor? There we are, there's the team spirit. All right, any motions in regards to this? Anthony?
I move second reading to bylaw 1211-25.
Discussion? All those in favor? Anybody wish to give third reading? Donna?
Do I have to go to?
No.
Oh, okay. I move to give third reading to bylaw 1211-25.
Discussion? All those in favor? That's carried unanimous. Okay,
Thank you.
comedy hour is over. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. So we're on, the ECHO, another community standards bylaw. It's like I stuttered.
Good morning once again, Raven Council. So this report coming forward is the Community Standards Bylaw updated version. The report is on pages 50 to 59 of your agenda package. So just a quick overview that on March 4th, Council directed administration to redraft the Community Standards Bylaw and associated policy to provide stronger enforcement. And then on the May 6th Council meeting, the Community Standards Bylaw and Educational Enforcement Policy were both presented to Council to confirm that we were meeting Council's expectation of greater enforcement capacity. In front of you today is the bylaw. The policy will come later, but we do want to ensure, as we did in 2021 and 2022, that whatever happens with the bylaw, the policy aligns, so the policy will come at a future Council meeting. The changes are highlighted on page 60, continuing on to page 61, primarily page 60. We have removed clause 4.2C, which states the presence of trees, shrubs, weeds, or other vegetation, which as a result of its location on the property has caused or may cause danger, or has caused or may cause damage, inconvenience, or devaluation of adjacent properties. Weeds can be dealt with under our Weeds Act, and trees and shrubs can be dealt through civil matters, freeing up some of staff's time to address other concern files and properties that are considered unsightly or unauthorized development. The other change that we made was to schedule to correct some typos. Section 9.2 was actually 10.2, and section 13.1 should have referenced 14.1. So those are the changes that we made. First reading has already been provided or given on June 3rd, and so administration is recommending moving forward with second and third readings to bylaw 1210-25 being the amended community standards bylaw.
I like the changes. I just, as I said before, if we had all the staff that's here right now, I trust what's going on, right? I have confidence. It's just if we have a change in staff with a different mentality, then this can be used aggressively, but I guess we could fire them later, I guess. So, ouch. Anthony, go ahead.
At our recent MPC meeting, we had some concerns brought to us about RVs being allowed on gravel pits and the associated quads and shooting and disruption it created for the neighbors. So if the comment came around that if we want to deal with RVs being allowed on natural resource extraction processing, we need to deal with some of the legislation we have. We also talked about, or at least was brought up at MPC, that some of our gravel companies could do more in terms of having their workers work and not only work in our county, but live in our county, which would help support our county better. And that was another further, I guess, assertion as to no need for the RVs on the gravel sites. So if we're going to deal with that, I think it would be through this community standards bylaw that we have to make the adjustment for allowance of, or non-allowance of RVs on natural resource extraction processing. Is that correct, administration?
So through the chair to Councillor Heinrich, recreational vehicles are regulated under the community standards bylaw. If you turn your attention to page 68 of your agenda, the Part 4 recreational vehicles does outline information and regulations related to recreational vehicles. 7.1 does state that it's for agricultural lands and residential areas as defined by the bylaw. That may be parked, stored, or use of the recreational vehicles without an approved campground permit within the following limits. We did at one point in time bring forward to council that with adding this in and starting to regulate RVs or recreational vehicles, the question came that if it is not mentioned in this bylaw, is it completely exempt from needing a maximum? Or is it exempt as in you are not allowed? Being of the mindset of a lawyer, they could argue either side. Depends which side of the bench they're sitting on, I guess, as to, well, you have no regulations stating that there is a number or allowable number, therefore it should be unlimited. And then the other side could argue, you mentioned nothing about allowing recreational vehicles in natural resource extraction and processing, so they should be exempt, there should be zero allowed. I do think some clarification around that would be helpful.
Mark, if we can continue.
Go ahead.
Is there a way that we can make it that it's also, and I'm going to use the word discretionary, so that if there are problem areas, we can say, you know, it just doesn't work here? Or if it's, let's say, no problems, that maybe we can show more generosity in terms of what's allowed?
So through the chair to Councillor Heinrich, I don't have a clear answer on that. I have not seen that type of thing within a community standards bylaw. Usually discretionary decisions have a board or a person who makes that discretionary call, such as like the land use bylaw, which has permitted and discretionary uses. I don't know how we would phrase that. I would need time to think, review, and put something together that may or may not work. The big thing is ensuring enforceability, but also ensuring that we are meeting council's mandate.
because I guess the reason I would like to be somewhat flexible is that we have some pits that seemingly haven't created or generated concerns from neighbors with having RVs on their properties. And they seem to perhaps be better community supporters in terms of like they're paying things like the community aggregate bylaw and things like that. So they are contributing more to their being a part of the community. And then we have some that are not quite as efficient in contributing to the community. And when they're living at the gravel pit site, they also seem to be, at least based on the experiences we're hearing from our residents, less concerned of the neighboring effects. So I think that's where we need to have a little extra authority, where we can say those that don't participate in the county and that are creating problems in the county, we need to be able to have the tools to deal with those that are perhaps good citizens and have not created a problem situation in the county. Maybe we can show more latitude. So I don't know, I guess I'm asking what council's thoughts are in that regard.
I just think it'd be difficult to differentiate between those that contribute to the community and those that don't. Yeah, that's just my own, that's only, I don't know how you would do that. And is there a problem with people just because they choose not to contribute to the community? Is that where we're going with this? Dallas, give me a cow.
Okay. It's really challenging that the area residents who live next to a extraction gravel crushing pit have to put up with the crusher and the activities that are going on during the day. Now they also have to put up with a park at night. So there is no, yeah, there's no rest. So for extraction, if it's zoned and they're extracting gravel, extract gravel. That's it. Don't turn to a campground. That's not the deal. I think that they take it, the residents who live near take it on the chin already. That's enough. They don't need to do more.
Kara?
And then, sorry, and I was a part of the MPC discussions too, and if we were gonna make a change, I think I would be open to the discretionary. I know in some cases, in some areas, we have this happening and it's not an issue, but we have it an issue in some areas. So if we're gonna look at making changes, I think this should be a discretionary use within this district. Is it addressed here or should it be addressed in the land use bylaw?
So through the chair to Councillor Westerland, good question. Currently, all recreational vehicles, the regulations are within this community standards bylaw that you see on page 68. We do have a definition of a recreational vehicle in our land use bylaw, but we don't have really regulations. We don't require a development permit for having a recreational vehicle on. If anything, I believe it's more so tied to explaining what a campground is and what is considered a recreational vehicle within a campground in our definition section. If we are wanting to start looking at the component of discretionary use, I would say that the land use bylaw may be the better avenue. What I would like to propose to council for consideration is if there is research, considerations, thoughts on how we may want to, as a county, address recreational vehicles, particularly on natural resource extraction and processing properties, that council consider the bylaw in front of them first, so that we have a nice clean bylaw moving forward with the enforcement files that we currently have ongoing in case any of them do end up in the courts, and work on figuring out the best solution for recreational vehicles if council so desires to have some sort of regulation in place for natural resource extraction and processing, and looking to see where it best fits.
Do you guys line up all these problems just before an election?
To the chair, no. Sorry, just one other thing that popped into my mind as I was speaking, flashbacks to a previous council meeting where we were discussing this type of process for recreational vehicles related to natural resource extraction and processing, and I do apologize, I do not have the report in front of me. one of the considerations we had presented to council was to change the definition of, or add a definition. I believe we were talking about work camp temporary, and stating that the work camp temporary could be a discretionary use under the natural resource extraction and processing district or zone, and stating that it would be RVs. So an RV set up solely for the purpose of workers, creating some sort of use within the land use bylaw. That just flashed into my mind, but I would need to go back and look at that report and look at the minutes as to what council had directed. I do know at that point in time, we left the discussion of regulating RVs and went to the discussion of the noise bylaw. That is when you saw changes to the noise bylaw from Mr. Chambers and the Community Services Department regulating noise in the natural resource extraction and processing districts through the noise bylaw instead. But we did have some work already done on that I could pull from to present to council for ideas and considerations.
Which foot do you want in my mouth? We're sawing sawdust these days. What's your wishes? Donna?
I like the work site in our bylaws, like a work site just for aggregate.
Not having the RV attached.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, on a work site in an aggregate place, you have to have surveillance and whatnot, but, I think it's more important in the bylaw, in our bylaws, than here, but I guess we need something here too. Never mind.
Any suggestions on what that something is? No? Okay, Anthony.
I guess first we should be deciding if we want to have the discretionary factor or not. If we don't have the discretionary factor, we can put it simply in here and say there is no RVs allowed on our natural resource extraction processing, and it's no problem putting it in here by adding an extra clause. So the big statement, I guess, is do we want to have it discretionary or not? If we don't want to have them on sites for gravel pits, then it's simple.
Is this a direct control? No? So if we made it direct control, then you'd be able to enforce it at any time, correct?
So through the chair, the difference between natural resource extraction processing and a direct control district is that it changes who the development authority is. So within Brazeau County, the authority for direct control is council as a whole, which means that any development, permitted or discretionary, comes to council for decision and the conditions. So an example is we do have a gravel pit that has come to council in 2018, and I believe once again it was renewed. Half of the gravel pit is direct control because it's on Crown land, and it has a cell A and a cell B within that direct control stating where extraction can occur. And then the other half of the pit is in natural resource extraction and processing. The only difference between the two is who the development authority is. So under natural resource extraction and a processing district or zone, it is the Municipal Planning Commission because it is discretionary use. For the direct control, it is council. So that is stated as who our development authority is and who has been granted authority for the different districts. That's the only difference.
I'm just thinking if it was direct control, do we have the authority to change the rules midway? What's that, Kara? Yes?
So through to the chair and to the council. The direct control is controlled by basically it looks like almost an individual bylaw that is attached at the end of our land use bylaw, which states what the setbacks are, what the permitted uses are, what the discretionary uses are. So because it's kind of unique to that parcel of land, there is potential to make it unique there. The problem is then the landowner would need to want to and apply to rezone it to direct control, which then again restricts all of their development needing to come in front of council for approval at any time that they wanted to change anything.
Okay, I'll just go down the list here. Anthony, then Glenn, then Dallas.
I guess I still would like to ask council the question. Do they want to have a discretion, or do they just want to have it where it's a flat out, no, we don't want them on natural resource extraction processing? Because then it's quite simple if we answer that question.
Okay, I'll get everybody's comment first, and then we'll come back to your question.
We want to have it so that we do not allow RVs on natural resource extraction zoning. If the answer is yes, we just have to add it into this bylaw today. We can add it, or get direct administration put in, and it's done. Those that have it would no longer be able to do it. If we want to use it in a discretionary way where we say the good guys that are behaving and don't creating problems can do it, and the guys that are problems, we won't allow it. In other words, that's where the discretionary part comes in from MPC. Then we have to do it through our land use bylaw, because that's the only bylaw that we have that has a board that can exercise the discretionary function.
Glenn?
Thank you, Chair. I do think that some of these extraction companies do need some sort of security on site, or something in the evening. Otherwise, you have people stealing the equipment or the fuel, or driving the equipment and making a mess. So I could see allowing 1 or 2 RVs, at least a minimum 1, because a work site trailer doesn't really work for a living space. So I could see allowing 1. And I get what you're trying to do, is avoid where you have 25 trailers all pulled around and making noise all night long. But 1 would be reasonable for these sites. And would also help with driving more people into the campgrounds that we own, and hotels, hospitality industry. So I wouldn't have a problem with adding something like that.
Part of, I can speak up to that, is if we put no, that they're not allowed, and put it into this bylaw, which would forbid them, we have discretion, under the land use bylaw, there's a surveillance suite. If they need to have a person stay on site for surveillance purposes, the land use bylaw allows for that surveillance suite observation of, be it a RV or a trailer, like Atco trailers, what I'm trying to say. So the provision is there within our land use bylaw, if we call it a surveillance suite, as long as we're making it clear that RVs aren't allowed on the natural resource extraction.
Dallas?
Yeah, discretionary use just clouds the water, just murkies everything up. I would stay away from that as far as I possibly could. Security is no problem. They absolutely require security at night, but you're on the night shift, you're awake. And the surveillance suite is more than enough for security to stay up. Yeah, the poor residents, they get no solace. There's decades of extraction. Some of these extraction sites are huge, and there could be decades. So what's the point? What are we doing if we're going to have temporary residents or RVs set up for a couple of decades? That's not temporary. That is not fair. It's just not fair at all. The amount of resource, the amount of revenue generation out of these big pits is significant. They can afford to put their people in RV parks or in town, or if you're going to be there for 2 decades, maybe you should move into the community. Like, you've got to figure something else out, in my opinion.
Is it more than $250?
It's more than $250. So they can do it.
Anthony?
And it was quite a strong request from the landowners at a pit at MPC that there is no need for these on-site residents. And that the on-site residents were not only living there, but they were using quads, after hours, RVing, like, just recreation, as well as some of the concerns were, and had heard complaints of firing like guns. And to me, they wouldn't be doing that in any other campground, yet they're doing it at a gravel site, which disrupts the surrounding neighbors. The surrounding neighbors already have enough negative effects on their way of life without this. So I think we could just put it clearly in here, no RVs are allowed in natural resource extraction processing zones. And I guess my question to administration is, how would that affect the existing operations that have RVs in their site? Would you have to go out and basically enforce their removal?
So through the chair to Councillor Heinrich. I have a couple points that I want to bring up, but to first answer that, if our bylaw states that no RVs can be on-site in a natural resource extraction and processing district or a direct control where the primary use is natural resource extraction and processing, typically how we state it, we remain complaint-driven, so if there's complaints on RVs and there are RVs on natural resource extraction and processing sites, they would need to remove all of them. Just wanting to address the comment on using surveillance suites as an option. Although we do have surveillance suites as a definition and as a use within our land use bylaw, there are two things that I would propose council consider. The first is recreational vehicles is not included in the definition. A surveillance suite can be either attached to a primary establishment, so a building, an existing dwelling, or be a manufactured home. Those are the three things that can fit under a surveillance suite definition. The other thing that we have seen over the past number of years is, although we regulate the number of dwellings on a parcel within our land use bylaw, we do not regulate the number of surveillance suites within our land use bylaw. And I believe we did have one go forward where there was 6 surveillance suites on a property, stating that they needed one at every entrance and exit, I believe was the part of the rationale. So just another thing to consider, that if we are going down another avenue, administration is happy to explore it and help show maybe some of the loopholes and help close some of the loopholes if that's the direction what council wants to go. But for the full answer of the question, if we say no RVs, there are no RVs on any of them.
So an RV doesn't act as a surveillance suite?
To the chair, not under our current definition.
Okay.
Correct.
And so you would also then be going out to those sites that have their RVs on there currently, if this were to be put in place, and say they gotta be gone?
So through the chair to Councillor Heinrich, only if we received a complaint, because the community standards bylaw is 100% complaint driven under the policy.
That would likely come.
Donna?
So just curious, is every gravel site, does every gravel site at the moment have complaints about RVs in their pits?
Through the chair to Councillor Wiltse, I only know of one gravel operation that has current complaints that were related to the RVs.
Go ahead, Kara.
And we do have other gravel pits that have RV sites in them.
But nobody's complaining about them.
No.
So, yeah, that's my worry, that
Well, we're spending lots of time chit-chatting today, but we're not gaining any ground. Go ahead, Glenn.
That would be the issue, is we're going to punish the people that haven't been a problem. And then going to second or third reading today seems really unfair because nobody's had a chance to come and offer any sort of input into the situation if they do own a gravel pit before doing this. So I would be hard pressed to make changes at second reading without going back and allowing the public to have some say in this.
Say that again, Dallas?
Just reverse it. We don't have to go to second reading. And give administration direction.
Okay, another solution? It's great being the chair today because I don't have to make the motion. Anthony?
I'm gonna need staff's help with the wording that they would advise for putting in no RVs on a natural resource extraction processing. I want to make sure that the wording that they would recommend is theirs, not necessarily something that's less than effective. So I'm asking for their assistance with the wording of that clause.
Would it be back to discretionary again? So you can let those that are doing a good job carry on, and those that aren't, the discretion is maybe a different answer. You follow?
So through the chair to council, the way the community standards bylaw works, I don't see a way of putting discretionary component in it under the recreational vehicle section or within the recreational section. Once again, my recommendation will be that we address the typos and the removal of the trees currently in front of council for second reading, and get direction on how to come forward with RVs and the best place for them, whether it is within the community standards bylaw of no RVs, or to put it within the land use bylaw somewhere where we can have some sort of discretion of the numbers. So that would be my proposal to council for consideration.
That seems to be the most palatable suggestion so far.
So would we move all of the RV component that's on page 68 over to the land use bylaw?
Through the chair to Councillor Heinrich. That would be something for us to look at of how we may want to address it. It would depend on the mechanism and the way we wanted to do it, and I think it needs a little bit more brain power behind it, of consideration from the administrative team, our community peace officers who help support us in the community standards bylaw, and our current planning team who help with the development permits related to natural resource extraction and processing, to get all the information together and figure out where is best to put it. Ideally, would we want to have everything within one bylaw? Yes. Will that happen? Not necessarily. We would need to look and see how best to address this situation.
Or could we just leave this as it is? Don't deal with the RVs on natural resource extraction processing under the unsightly, or under this bylaw. So in other words, so we could pass it today then if we don't deal with any of that, second and third reading. And then direct administration to bring back the land use bylaw and look at the natural resource extraction processing, where we wouldn't allow, or where we would make RVs on natural resource extraction processing a discretionary use.
That's kind of what you said already, eh?
Yeah, the only change I would maybe propose is that not restricting us to the land use bylaw, but bringing forward ideas to regulate recreational vehicles, or provide structure for recreational vehicles on the natural resource extraction and processing. That way we could look at which avenue is the best, the community standards bylaw or the land use bylaw, and bring back all our information for council consideration.
You're already telling us that if we want to use the discretionary factor, community standards bylaw doesn't have a board to exercise the discretionary factor. So to me, that's saying community standards bylaw is not an option. So for discretionary. So that one is already out. So that's why I'm saying, leave it the way it is. Pass it if we wish, so with the content that it has today. Direct administration to bring back the land use bylaw, deal with RVs on natural resource extraction processing under the land use bylaw, which has the power of a board to use discretionary. That gives us the proper placing of where the authorities can be exercised. And it's not that we're then still doing a bunch of searching. We don't need to do any searching. We've already got the answers. We just got to get at it.
Okay, you guys comfortable with that? And then we deal with it in the bylaw.
We deal with it in our land use bylaw.
Yeah. Any other comments? Then, if we don't have comments, then we have to make a motion or not.
Okay, then, Bart, based on that, the discussion we had seems to have reached a conclusion, so I'll move second reading of bylaw. What's the number of it? 12-10-25.
Discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Glenn?
I move to give third reading to bylaw 1210-25 being the amended community standards bylaw.
Discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? One? Hey, I was opposed, I just realized, to the first reading. The second one I voted, so kind of 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Anthony,
Make a motion.
go ahead.
I move to direct administration to bring back the land use bylaw with the direction to administration to craft a provision so that RVs are not allowed on natural resource extraction or the allowance for RVs on natural resource extraction processing districts is discretionary.
Discussion, all those in favor? That's carried unanimous. Well, if anybody was thinking of running for election, we just bored the hell out of them, so. All
We're
right,
not even finished yet.
I know, well, I know that. Putting staff to sleep, or, all right, let's,
We still have aggregate bylaw, Bart.
that's item E that Anthony put on. Okay, go ahead, Anthony, you put it on.
Likewise, our MPC building, meeting presented us with concerns from citizens that felt some operators within our county may not contribute as much to the community as we have the ability to request of them. And we have an aggregate bylaw. It states the words may rather than they're required to contribute to it. And,
Are we talking about the levy on gravel?
yeah,
Okay.
that 45 cents, I believe it is now. And we have some citizens, some gravel pits, I mean, when I refer to citizens, that are paying it, and paying it relatively well. And we have others that are basically finding reasons not to pay it, even though they write in their application that they're delivering it to a cement plant, the gravel. So if they're delivering it to a cement plant, to me, that would suggest commercial, not government. And yet, we're not getting any or very little natural resource extraction levy from those individuals. Therefore, I think we should be making it mandatory. It's something that our roads are getting pounded. It's very little, if you look at it per ton, anyway, and most of them are hauling the gravel that we're talking about when we're talking about these operators as significant haulers outside of our county. They're not even providing it to our residents, to our businesses, or to our county. They're hauling it elsewhere. So I think when we are putting that kind of stress on our infrastructure and our residents have to deal with associated effects of a gravel pit in their backyard, I think the least we can do is also get the gravel aggregate made as not a may, but a must. In other words, we get something out of the gravel pits.
So you're
Because
saying,
if you look at their assessment, they aren't giving us much money assessment-wise. We've checked into that. Assessment-wise, the lands are still what they're used at, and most of the lands are used still in agriculture or other prior uses used in agriculture. Therefore, that use doesn't get taxed very highly. And so we are not getting it out of the tax end if we're going to say we're getting it out of the taxes.
no, I understand, it's a commodity that we're selling, and so there should be a levy attached to a commodity, whether, it's too bad we can't do that with oil and gas, you know, having a royalty paid to the municipality, but we at least get some money out of them for linear and taxation, so, and that's significant. So, yeah, I don't see why we don't make it mandatory. 45 cents a ton is not a huge item.
So Bart, if I could, I'll make a motion.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, someone else want to speak? Pippa, did you want to?
We were using the word voluntary a bit, so the vote, I don't have it in front of me because this was new in the
Yes.
agenda today, but I don't believe the word voluntary is in the aggregate levy bylaw. I think what we've been talking about this morning about enforcement is something we need to work on within this. And I know we're not the only municipality that struggles with this, because I do get calls from other administration from other municipalities about how we handle it, because they're trying to figure out how they can handle it, right? So in previous times, it was voluntary. CAP came through and allowed municipalities to change the bylaw. So it wasn't so much voluntary, but it's still, we have trouble enforcing it. It is a bit of an honest system. So it is changing that. I am having a meeting with 8 different municipalities on Thursday, which would be a great place to get some feedback about how they handle it, how they can monitor it and get compliance from all across the board. So if you're open to me getting some information on that and whether there needs to be changes within the bylaw or within our administration enforcement procedures and how we can change that at the next meeting.
You know, we make laws for 2% of the population. How many gravel pits have we got, and how many good contributors do we have, and how many poor ones do we have? Do we know that kind of thing? What do we got, 8 gravel pits, 10?
Yeah, it's a small percentage that, so they're supposed to report quarterly, and quarterly I get 1 or 2 reports.
1 or 2 out of the 8 or 10 gravel pits that we got. So most of them aren't paying, then, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so there is an exemption section. So if they are hauling, there's I think 4 or 5 different items under that exemption section. So if they're hauling it out for Alberta infrastructure projects, municipality projects, there are a list of things under that exempts them from it. I think it's worth still having them, so verbally, sometimes when you question them, verbally they're saying, well, we're using it for a government project, so we don't need to pay. But I think there should be higher enforcement on that, having them to submit a report saying what projects it's going for, and so at least they're held to that. You know, if they're not going to pay the levy, but at least it is in writing what project's going for and where it falls under the exemptions of the bylaw.
See, in the part, Bart, that it's voluntary, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we took out the voluntary, because I used the word may and must, but I still was rough, maybe didn't have the right word, but it's still the same meaning. So if we took out the voluntary and required it, then it still becomes a matter of trusting them and having them giving us accurate numbers, but it's no longer their choice. Now they need to start coming with something, even if it's a fake number.
That's correct, yeah. It's just working on the enforcement of that, so there is a follow-up and making sure that mandatory we get reports back on a quarterly basis as it states in the bylaw that they should be doing.
We may not have the ability to measure how much is going out, but they're required to give us something if we make that change, because we're taking out the voluntary component.
Is it something we can do midstream? Like partway through the year?
Yeah, and I think it's worth it. It may not be a number of changes within the bylaw. I think this may come down to just different practices within administration and enforcement here. If you're open to it, I could bring that information back at, I believe it's the July 15th meeting. And whether that is, you know, a bylaw concern or whether it's administration and enforcement option.
And I don't think it matters whether it's for the county or the province that they pay it. They're just gonna add 45 cents a ton onto their costs, you know, as well. So, you know, that's how I see it. So having all these loopholes doesn't seem to solve the problem. You just do it straight across the board. Everybody pays for everything. And then the contractors will charge that 45 cents, you know, onto the cost of, you know, aggregate. At least that's how I see it.
This is to Pippa and Bart, or to Rudy. You know, if there's within our power to require everyone, or is the province the higher authority that says that for government use you can't charge it?
That's a great question. Yeah, I'm not positive whether
Kara,
CAP would be the authority
Kara,
on that.
do you know from the, because this has been dealt with through discussions at RMA as well?
I'm not wearing my shirt today. No, it's me. Oh, there you go. That's a lot better. No, still. I'll lean back. I don't know. That's interesting. Any of the discussions with the Gravel Association were put on hold. However, they just started back up. They were put on hold for about 6 months. And the task force just started again. But there was no indications about making that mandatory. So I think the biggest thing on even from RMA's perspective is how do you enforce it?
No, but I mean, my point is, especially if we have the powers to take it so they charge on everything, like whether it goes to government or not, then it's pretty obvious. We can see the number of trucks that are coming out of that pit if we wanted to sit there and do just a one-day observation even. And our residents are doing that for us because they're telling us at the MPC how many trucks go out of their day, so they've done it for us already. So it's easy enough to figure that out and figure out what an average truck holds. So we know there's tonnage going out. It's just a matter of making sure that whatever goes out of that pit is taxable. And if it's taxable, if all destination, wherever it's going, that there is no exemptions, then it doesn't matter how many trucks are coming out there. We just figure out 130 trucks times the number of tonnage on a truck.
Research is what I'm hearing.
To answer, and be able to bring back the answer to Anthony's question of if there is a higher authority, if like the community, the CAP program with the Alberta government, if that's higher than ours, and if we have to have those exemptions not within it, I'd have to find that out.
Okay, well, anyway, I would like to make sure that move that we direct administration to bring them back the aggregate bylaw and explore the ability to make the voluntary payment of the aggregate payment compulsory, and preferably for all uses.
Discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimous.
Thank you.
You guys want a 5-minute break before public input? For those of you that haven't been here at council before, public input's a time to bring issues forward that aren't necessarily on the agenda. Yeah, call in a 5-minute break. There, he's back. Okay, good job, Glenn. All right, I'll call the meeting back to order. Utility master plan. Oh, yes, thanks. Yeah, so it's public input time. It's 11 o'clock. It's an opportunity that council provides to provide input that may not be on the agenda. The floor is open. Be respectful of staff and council and direct any questions or concerns to me. Anybody online, Tina, that we know? Nobody online. Anybody in the gallery?
Hi, my name is Les Huber, and I totally agree with Glenn about having a deterrent about neglected properties, and it shouldn't be complaint driven when you guys got county employees driving around and we got 7 or 6 counselors. They know what's going on, or they should know what's going on in their area. It shouldn't be complaint driven to drive wedges between neighbors and stuff. And as far as the deterrent thing, I totally agree with it. And if it's, whether it's a vacant lot, vacant acreage, vacant whatever, there should be a price to pay for them, because the council still pays, county pays, and all the ratepayers pay for maintenance on vacant, derelict, whatever. It shouldn't be at the expense of the ratepayers. And that's my opinion on that.
Anybody else? Anybody online? Seeing none, we'll come out of a public input session and we'll carry on with the agenda.
So can I adjust the agenda?
Go ahead, adjust the agenda.
Thank you, Reeve. I would just ask council if we could move item 9A, agricultural services, just put it right in front of Public Works so that we could, so Greg could go back to his daily routine of,
Yeah, we'll just deal with it right now. Yeah.
if that's fine, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So would you, a motion for that, sir?
Yes.
All right, so I'll move to add item 9A, agricultural services, to right now.
Discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimous. All right, Craig.
All right, good morning, Reeve and Council. So we had a late addition to our summer staff crew this year. So as such, on pages 106 and 107 of your agenda package there, you will see a request that council appoint Maya Robb as a weed and pest inspector, with that appointment being valid until the termination of her employment at the end of the summer season.
All righty. Go ahead, Dallas.
I think that's a really great idea. I'll move that council appoints Maya Robb as a weed and pest inspector, valid until termination of employment.
Discussion. All those in favor? Carried unanimous.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Yeah, next time when you got a short item like that, just ask to have it moved up, because I know we're great to listen to, but not that great. All right, utility master plan.
Okay, here for the Utilities Master Plan with a bit of a budget question. So the Utilities Master Plan is a strategic planning document that will focus on water treatment, water distribution, wastewater treatment, wastewater collection, and solid waste infrastructure within Brazeau County. The plan supports Brazeau County's long-term goals of sustainability and strategic infrastructure development while improving service delivery through the Utilities Division. So during the interim budget 2025, Council approved a budget of $170,000 for the Utilities Master Plan. So we recently put that out via formal public tender, and we received 3 bids back. So we first have the recommended proposal, which is MPE, for $324,726. And then we have 2 other bids that were not recommended, one slightly lower, however, still over the $170,000. And the other bid was over 1.1 million, so substantially over the budget. So they did vary quite a bit. And we definitely did not anticipate seeing them this high. So 2 options. Option A, proceed with the full scope, which would require an additional $154,726 to be funded from taxation to the already $170,000 approved. Or option B, remove it from the 2025 budget. We can have discussions and talk about bringing it back at the 2026 interim budget for decision.
So I see this type of a exercise. I don't think there's value in it for us. We don't have a huge growth going on. We've upgraded the stuff in Cynthia. We've upgraded the stuff in Violet Grove. I'm not sure this is money that would be well spent at this time, because we haven't had the growth to say we need to do something different than what we've got. So that's where I'm at on it. Spending this kind of money on a study, I don't see the value. So I would suggest that we delay it till budget discussions, and you'll have the new guys, whoever they may be, making the decision on whether or not to go ahead. It's doubtful they'd get it done between now and then anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Kara?
I move to direct administration to remove the utilities master plan from the 2025 budget and bring it forward to the fall budget discussions for the 2026 interim budget.
Thanks, Kara. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Thanks. Okay, next item. Public hearing. Oh, we already did that one. Did we need to make a decision out of that public hearing, or?
No, you gave second and third reading to the speed limit bylaw, so we got the motions out of it, yeah.
Falling over still?
Still falling over, and again, another budget discussion seems to be the theme of the week. Is quotes coming in quite high, higher than expected. So we're looking for council to provide direction to administration regarding the Violet Grove Transfer Station retaining wall. During the November 2024 interim budget discussions, a motion was made to approve the design. So administration requested proposals, and that was awarded to Latitude Engineering to redesign the retaining wall with a new reconfiguration and the full reconfiguration idea of the whole site. That cost estimate came back April 7th, and it was quite high. So then from that, another motion was made to administration to look into cost savings in this area, what could be done in-house, eliminate some of the reconfiguration options of the other items on site. So based on discussion surrounding this motion, administration reviewed the project savings, including in-house capabilities, and in talking with Latitude Engineering, brought the initial $816,000 quote down to about $600,000. Attached on page 99 shows the existing station. Then on page 100, it shows the full reconfiguration, which was the $816,000 quote. And then the last one on page 101 was the, this last option with the $600,000, where you have the full redesign of the new redesign of the wall, but removing a lot of the extra reconfigurations and costs, and taking into house what we could do in-house, what we could remove in-house, what we could store, and eliminate some of those costs. And a bit of disclaimer, that $600,000, that price we're getting from an engineering firm, their estimate, it's Public Works' assumption that putting it out to tender, the actual, experts in that area doing construction, the cost may come down substantially lower than that, but I'm having to go with that engineering number right now. So I did have kind of 4 alternatives listed there. Alternative 1, council approve up to $600,000 to fully replace the existing retaining wall with a new design and redo the paving on site. Alternative 2, council approve up to $400,000 to remove and replace the failing wall using the existing design. So that would be just rebuilding it with the same size and state that it is right now, not the new design. Alternative 3, council direct administration to re-engage with retained engineering firm to redesign the wall, to look at reducing materials and lowering costs, perhaps, separating the phasing where we do the paving in a separate phase in a different budget year. Alternative 4, council direct administration to defer this project to the 2026 budget cycle. And then administration internally under operating would just do some temporary pavement repairs to slow down the deterioration of the wall.
Boy, the guy should be in the concrete business, although they might take it for granted. What's your wishes there, councillors? Seems like just a ton of money. But the problem's not gonna go away. It's failing, and it's gonna continue to fail. So we could delay it, or bite the bullet this year and get it done. There's your choices. Anthony?
As I recall, the option was option 2 to begin with, and we come back with an expanded plan to start including the metal, and that's why the cost doubled. I think we should go back to what we originally talked about, and we were talking about being, living within our means, and that's what was there, what is there, and what was needed, just to repair what was there. So I would say we do go ahead with option 2.
Donna?
Well, I think we're always talking about unsightly premises and get your place cleaned up. And if we don't have a place for people to bring this stuff, the metal and the appliances, we're kind of giving them a mixed message. I would, did you make a motion?
No.
No?
There's, if I can speak to that, Donna, there is places within our transfer sites that where the public are allowed to bring metals. So they already have the option to bring in metals to those particular sites. It's just not in a bin. And then staff goes and, or whoever's our contractor that picks it up, already picks it up at those sites. So it's just being status quo rather than all of a sudden study the Cadillac version.
Is it
I
tin
don't
allowed
think
in all of them?
Not all of them.
Oh, I see, just some, yeah, like Rocky Rapids and,
Breton, yeah, there's about 3 of them that allow like appliances and have metal bins.
and Lodgepole doesn't allow it either?
I don't know off the top of my head.
So there's nothing in that quadrant of the county there to deliver it, so.
I don't think it's a Cadillac design. I think it's a usable design, and it has to be redone. So we might as well do it right the first time.
So which option were you looking at, Donna?
I am going to make a motion to go with number 1.
Okay, you made that as a motion?
Well, just a second. Is that the one I'm looking at?
Sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Well, Dawn is thinking of her motion. I just got 2 questions. Was the pricing coming in high? Was it just due to the timing of us putting the RFD out?
2 things. I do suspect that anything that was put out a little bit later, when things are in term and come out in January, I seem to have been getting lower pricing than RFDs later on in the year. So I suspect that's one option. And then 2, the pricing is not actually to a construction company. It's not a construction company that's giving that pricing. It's the engineering. Typically, in past projects, the engineers, they're rounding up, they're going high as a cost estimate, just providing a high-level cost estimate. So when I say approve up to, the hopes is always that the actual, once you put the actual tender out for the work, it would be a little bit different there, as well as we would be taking line items out to what we can do in-house. Like, we can remove concrete pavement in-house. We can store and dispose of that, you know, for no cost. We would not need to remove the shack, which was a $20,000 line item within that. So there were those items that would be removed before it went out to tender.
Okay, so this hasn't gone out to tender, this is just...
No, it's just the end, yeah, because the money was only approved for the engineering of it, so that's the numbers we're having to present and go with.
Okay.
Okay. Hearing only, or is it for the construction?
It's the engineer's quote of what they propose the construction would cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other piece is, I do completely agree with Councillor Wiltsey's comments about if we're gonna do this, fix it right the first time. I don't wanna be coming back in a year or 2 to paying the remobilization cost. We have a problem, we need to fix it, let's fix it right the first time, and I don't wanna stick a Band-Aid on it.
So go ahead and make your motion, Donna, you're the only light on.
Okay. I move to go with the alternative 1, council approve up to $600,000 to fully replace the existing retaining wall with a new design and redo all paving on site.
Discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Anthony, thank you. Okay. Hybrid SUV vehicle.
Okay, so I'm bringing this one forward as during interim budget discussions, it was mentioned by council to look at hybrid EV options, as well as have had ongoing consultations with the CEO around the topic. In my list I was provided of replacements this upcoming year, we have a current hybrid SUV that is on the list for replacements due to its age. So vehicle T129 is a hybrid SUV, is scheduled for replacement under our equipment replacement policy. This unit's been having ongoing battery issues. We've replaced the battery 4 times. It is quite unreliable to staff utilizing it. The vehicle, from my understanding, the size, what it's needed for, doesn't get utilized enough, and I think that causes a lot of battery issues as well. In talking to a number of dealerships, the hybrid vehicles just need to be used on a consistent basis to extend their battery lives. So given this vehicle's intermittent usage, the level of activity is not feasible, contributing to the reoccurring issues. So the recommended 2024 F-150 hybrid power boost would support multiple departments. In conversations with the CEO, it would also be used for economic development initiatives such as business attraction meetings and community tours, etc. Below is a bit of information about the model we're suggesting. And on the second page, I do have the total price that was quoted from Drayton Valley Ford, which is $65,902.04. They are offering a trade-in value of the current hybrid SUV at $22,500. We often don't suggest trade-in, but this was we often go to auction or to sale. However, this was very high trade-in value that we were quoted. You'll see lower below, Stetson and Toyota had quoted $16,000 and $15,000 for trade-in. So with the trade-in value, it would be a cost of $43,402.04. Below that are the other prices. So Stetson Motors, they don't have a hybrid option, but they do have a full EV option, and that one was quoted just over $102,000. And Drayton Valley Toyota, they don't have a hybrid option currently, but they will in the fall, and that was $78,595. So we're just looking for council direction on this.
Yeah, I was talking to a taxi guy, he puts on, in 5 years, 750,000 kilometers on a hybrid.
Okay.
But then it's used all the time, and he says that's the standard the taxi guys use is 5 years and, 750,000, which is just insane.
Right. Yeah.
But they're always charging, they're always being used. So that is one of the downfalls of hybrids. You gotta use them frequent enough that you keep the batteries topped up. Glenn?
Will this truck be used enough throughout the winter to keep the battery up, or does it just start by itself to get the battery bumped up?
No,
I
it would
just
have
see
to be
problems
used.
every
We
time it
would,
gets cold.
I've talked to the CEO about this, about it being utilized as, a bit of a daily driver for someone within the Public Works Department. If someone in planning needs to use it, then that's available to them, and whenever CEO or Economic Development needs it, it would be used. If this was to be utilized, any hybrid vehicle that we have, it would have to be a daily use vehicle. So I recently just used this hybrid SUV on Friday. Myself and the project manager went out, and we just did a short trip from here to the Ring Road to look at the pathway, and it did die on us. And so we did get stranded there, but it was because it was a short trip, not enough to charge. We've done longer trips around the county, have less issues with it that way. So it would need to strategically be planned so that it was a daily use vehicle, more consistently used vehicle. And that's why the truck versus the SUV, the ability to travel with more people, luggage, whatever it needed to be, it has a bit more ability to go down the roads it need to go down. It was a bit more of an appealing vehicle for everyday use.
Would it have the plug-ins for coffee makers and stuff as well?
For coffee?
Well, to make hot chocolate, you need the kettles and stuff. Is
yeah. It does have those plugins in it, yeah.
Is council allowed to use these for economic development?
There you go.
Oh, it would have been handy. I went to the airport and I did have, the idea of bringing hot chocolate, but nothing to power it. And I was like, I wish I owned one of those trucks that had the electric plug-ins in it, right? But, okay. And then
in the back of it, in the box, there is on both sides. So I do have pictures of the existing vehicle, and then the very last page, stock photo of the proposed one. That is the color of what's on the lot, as well as the picture of the one from the lot as well.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good vehicle, as long as it was not left outside for 2 weeks when it's minus 20 and it destroys that battery or whatever. That would be my concern. I don't know how they work, if you can plug them in such a way that the battery would always stay charged, or...
Again, in speaking to each of the dealerships and about their feedback on this and what we've experienced in the past, it was less about plugging in, it was more just using it on a regular basis.
Okay.
I think the mileage of our current one is quite low due to its low usability.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glenn, you can unscrew the light bulbs and screw in one of those plug-ins, and then you can plug it in anywhere. So if there's no outside plugging to steal power from, you can do that with a light bulb. There's some lights there. All right. Go ahead, Kara.
In another hat I wear in the organization, we run hybrids. We have the exact same problem. So if our hybrids sit in our parking lot, it's a massive issue. Plugging them doesn't help. It does help, but it doesn't help. They have to be used. You gotta have a consistent usage. So this isn't just a issue here. I think we've got 9 of them in our fleet, and we have a constant, so much so that I have an emergency sheet in my vehicle with what to do when it happens, because that's how much it happens.
Okay.
The other thing is those plugins that you're talking about, Glenn, most new vehicles, whether they're hybrid or not, have them. So I have a 2024, and it's not hybrid, but I have the type of plug-in you're talking about. One in the middle, and then I think I've got 2 in the back too as well.
Okay.
Yeah, yours is an old vehicle. It's a year old or so, isn't it, Glenn? All right. Anthony?
I just think that this one here is showing that it's not giving us the reliability, especially with the intermittent use of it. We are an area that's supposedly an oil country. Why aren't we supporting our industry and buying the gas burner? As far as I'm concerned, I would be buying a regular truck.
I like it when the sun pays our fuel bills. Huh?
Dependability is more important.
Never had an issue with my hybrid. I've had 4 of them. Like, the only thing I think it changed is brake pads and tires. I never stopped. Like the Energizer Bunny. Kara?
I appreciate the comments too, and it's a balance too. I don't know what the answer is because I haven't shopped for a truck in that world, but is there much of a price increase with the hybrids over just a regular gas truck? The other interesting thing is just I drive an SUV, the one that a hybrid I have right now, I'm getting 7 liters to 100K, which is pretty phenomenal. So, and there's a cost savings and we're dealing with taxpayers' money, so I'm trying to find that balance. I hear the oil and gas, trying to promote that too as well, so.
But it is oil and gas. It's a hybrid. It's not an electric vehicle. It's both, right? So you're. Yeah.
The full EV option was substantially higher, like double the price. So this hybrid option is in line with the regular gas price, right? So it's 65,000. We'd probably be looking at 63,000 for one, so it's not too much different.
Okay. Donna?
I move to direct administration to approve the purchase of the 2024 Ford F-150 hybrid Power Boost in the amount of $43,402.04 after trade-in. Funded from the Equipment Replacement Reserve.
And from Drayton Valley Ford.
From Drayton Valley Ford.
Discussion? All those in favor? Yeah, Donna made the motion, and all in favor?
Everybody helped.
Those opposed? Dallas, you diesel burner.
Detroit diesel all day long.
All right.
Dallas and Anthony.
Dallas and Anthony were opposed. Where are we here? We are on. Go ahead, Lee.
Morning, Council. So page 108, draft animal control bylaw during the June 3rd, 2025 regular council meeting. Moved by Donna Wiltsey to bring the animal control bylaw back to the next council meeting. Previous discussions at council highlighted a concern about the number of canines permitted on properties over 1 acre in size. Result of this discussion was a draft an additional subclause, which is actually, if you turn to page 113, under section 1.5, at the bottom of the page there, canines being kept as a companion and not as part of an animal service facility must be allowed in accordance with the following. So what was added was parcels larger than 1 acre in size, no more than 5 canines shall be allowed to remain upon or in any land, house, shelter, room, place, building, structure, or premises within the county, unless the owner is a holder of a valid and subsisting development permit for animal service facility as defined by the animal land use bylaw. The owner has an over limit permit from the county. And then, of course, canines less than 6 months of age not regulated by this, and failure to comply with these conditions will result in an offence subject to penalty as outlined in the Schedule of Fees bylaw. The over-limit permit for canines such as will be sought by a resident if the number of canines they own exceeds the limit. The reason for owning the canines does not meet the use of an animal service facility as defined by the land use bylaw. Attached for council's review is an updated animal control bylaw, which includes those changes. So, one thing
we're doing is removing Schedule A and C and amending all references for penalties or fines as part of this bylaw, which will just be brought forward as part of the schedule of fees. That's what we usually have been doing with a lot of the bylaws, so we don't have to change the whole bylaw if we ever change any of the fees. Council could opt to provide all 3 readings in one meeting. Administration notes that the previous attempt to replace the animal control bylaw was defeated and included a non-statutory public hearing. For transparency, it would be best to separate the readings to allow for any public feedback. A non-statutory public hearing could also be scheduled ahead of the bylaw coming back for second and third readings. Therefore, administration is requesting council provide first reading and provide direction on holding a non-statutory public hearing.
Donna?
Well, because we spent so much time on this last time, and I am totally clear now of the over-limit permit, I would like to make a motion
Go ahead.
that council provide first reading of Animal Control Bylaw 1213-25, which proposes to limit the number of canines on properties to 5 on all parcels larger than 1 acre and 4 on all parcels 1 acre or smaller, and provide a mechanism that should a resident have more canines than prescribed. 1 acre or smaller, and provide a mechanism should a resident have more canines than prescribed, which we did.
Anybody understand Donna's motion?
I just,
Sorry, ouch. Serves me right. Picking on you and my ribs hurt. Okay.
the Matt, I would say. Right?
Well, there's 2. There is the fines, but also there's the over-limit permit, should they not meet this bylaw. There's another way, yeah. If they don't meet the, as described by the, the definition as far as animal service facility. If they don't meet that, then they can apply for an over-limit permit.
That's a good thing we hired another CPO, because he'll be busy counting dogs. Well, as soon as you have a bylaw, it has to be enforced, and I'm just not into more rules. Go ahead, Anthony.
It's good that we bought this electric vehicle, it get lots of use.
Ouch. All right. So Donna has a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? You're in favor, Anthony? That was kind of a slow hand up. Takes a while. Those opposed? Dallas and Bart.
So what about public hearing then?
Pardon me?
So what about non-statutory public hearing?
Yeah, I was just looking for direction as far as holding a public hearing when we do the second.
Okay, is that included in the motion?
No, it wasn't.
Probably want to do that. No, I don't.
Well, I think you should have a public hearing. Anthony, or Glenn?
I move to direct administration to set up a public hearing for the animal control bylaw
Next council meeting?
at the next council meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
how do you want it worded? How do you want it worded?
Ahead of the second reading.
Ahead of the second reading? Okay.
Discussion, that was a motion? All those in favor? Carried unanimous. Fire services, no reports. Agriculture, we dealt with that. Reconciliation statement. Sounds like we're doing something wrong when we have to reconcile.
You reconcile. There you go.
Go ahead, Colin.
Good morning, Council. On page 126 of your agenda, you'll find the bank reconciliation as of May 31st, 2025. If Council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and if not, I would request that this reconciliation is received for information.
Colin, when we passed our budget, we have a certain amount in reserves, but we've also got some other outstanding money sitting in accounts. So what's the actual total on top of the reserves that we have slated?
So to the Reeve, on this one, the reserves encompasses in whole the funds available to the municipality.
Okay, so there isn't any, because last time we asked this, you said there was a few million someplace.
No, we may have been, no, there's not. On the financial statement, there are some listings, like they'll list unrestricted reserves on one component, and it's a little misleading and something we're working with our auditors maybe to recategorize. Essentially, if we look in our statement, we do show it says $30 million is unrestricted reserves, but what that actually represents is contributed assets. Say when a developer completes a subdivision and signs it over to the county, we have that value, say it's a $7 million amount, that gets reflected in that account as well too. So that may be what you're thinking of.
So it's kind of like
a
receivable.
It is, but then again, similar to gravel and things like that. Yes, it's great we received the value of that subdivision in $1 million, but that's not a liquid instrument to go out to use, and ultimately kind of represents as well something that will need to be replaced over time and things like that as well too. So we do receive the value of it. It is an asset in that regards, but it isn't funds that we can spend.
I've only been at this job for 22 years and I'm just starting to figure it out, so.
Yeah, sometimes they don't make it easy.
All right, so go ahead, Kara.
I move to receive the bank reconciliation for information.
Discussion, those in favor? Carried unanimous. Glenn, you've got a report in here. Good report, by the way.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the conference for FCM. It was pretty good, well, really good actually. We had a great speech from the Prime Minister who talked about he wants to fast track development in Canada, focus money in Canada. So that was really good news, and I think it warmed up a lot of people to him. I seen a really interesting thing about a district energy system. So in Quebec, they had a pulp and paper mill that makes toilet paper, but they'd use that wastewater to heat the lumber industry that made matchsticks and cut lumber. And when that industry died, it was just abandoned, and they were forced to dump that steaming hot water into the river. And they got, to get away from that, they actually developed condominiums on both sides in Ontario and Quebec that are now heated and cooled with the water that comes from that mill. And that kind of opened up an opportunity for us. If we're going to be doing data centers that are driving heat or have that waste heat, we should be looking at that. When they do come, we should be focusing on how can we take that and use it. Because in Quebec's instant, the pulp and paper mill was able to get an actual carbon credit for that wastewater that was normally just going into the river. And the second part was the homeless in Quebec. It was interesting. They had a problem there like everybody does, but they decided they were going to build a park for them. So the 5-acre park, and it's got 60 sea cans in it, and each sea can has a little 100 square foot room. So it's got a bed, it's got a fridge, and a table to work at. So it's a private quarters, and so far it's been working really well. And what they do to keep it just to their citizens, you got to show proof that you have a Quebec healthcare card to access that facility. But I just thought it was an interesting way, rather than have people living rough on the streets, disturbing businesses, you kind of get them gathered in. So this complex has a bike repair shop, it has community washrooms, shared bathrooms, laundry facilities, and just a place for them to meet. And it's just out of sight, out of mind, and I did notice that when I went to Gatineau, Quebec, I'd seen very few homeless people compared to you cross the bridge into Ontario, and they were everywhere, and I mean everywhere. So just that one little, something as simple as that helped the homeless situation quite a bit there.
That blonde girl that you see, that's Catherine Clark. She's Joe Clark's daughter.
I also found some companies that deal with audio and visual issues. So if you've ever watched our meetings online, what you'll hear is a bzzz constantly, right? And I don't know why that is, but it's not apparent in here, but it is when you watch those videos online. So they do offer a free consultation to come and address these issues, and they could be as simple as seeing where the lines are if they run too close to one another. But yeah, overall, it was a good conference. A lot of money to go to one of these, but you're participating, you're voting. We got to meet our new MP, Dane Lloyd. He took us on a tour of Parliament to the West Block, and what they've done there, because the main block is under construction, they moved the whole shebang into the West Block there, and that's where they do their meetings, but it's actually done outside. They have a courtyard there, and they put a roof over it, and it's kind of a temporary situation, but they make do with that. He also took us out for supper, and it was a good time to just connect with him, and his words were that he's now chair of the Alberta caucus, and he's going to use his position as an MP and as chair to further Parkland, and we are in now Parkland's area, the position that, so he's going to work really hard for us. But yeah, it was a very good trip.
Canning homeless. Go ahead, Anthony.
How did the voting go with the resolutions? Did we feel that the ones that were presented were valuable to the rural sector?
Yes.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Yes, for the most part, there was a consensus there. We had one very contentious issue. Somebody wanted to amend up north to get more health care up north, right? And from an Alberta side, it was an idea that it's not a federal issue, it's a provincial issue, right? So, but that was one of the few things that didn't go very well. So there was a couple of things, but for the most part, Alberta was well represented. We had a lot of people up there voting that could vote, and that was another issue there, I suppose. The electronic voting, we didn't have a large number of people voting. I noticed that when it was time to do the vote on resolutions, the hall was probably not quite half full, and it's because of this electronic voting. It's driving people out of it. They're not interested, they don't know how to do it, and so what's the point of going to vote? So I would like to see something done as far as moving towards a simpler system, if that's just a paddle system or something, but there was just a number of people there that they couldn't get logged in with their credentials that they had, or they were looking at their last year's credentials, and it wasn't really obvious on how to fix it or address it. Everyone kept thinking that the FCM app that you had on your phone was a way to vote. It wasn't. You actually had to find an old email and then log in through that, and then you use those credentials that they gave you. There was just 2 numbered passwords to get in, and then you were allowed to vote. But it really excluded anybody that didn't have a telephone, or those that didn't have their credentials, or those that had their emails hacked recently, didn't have access to those. So, I mean, you're paying a lot of money to go to these things, and then not to be able to vote seemed ridiculous to me. So yeah, other than that, but yeah, Alberta, they did try to do a lot more rural-based study tours and try to bring in the rules a bit more. Like I said, that was part of the issue that we had in the Calgary conference. That was when it came to time to talk about rural issues, we've seen that half of the room left the building. They weren't interested in it. This time, they scheduled things in such a way that it kept everybody engaged, and to hear these issues. So it was done better this time.
Need a motion to receive Glenn's report. Kara?
And the nice thing is it's in Edmonton next year, so a little
Yeah.
closer to home, so. And actually, if you've noticed over the years, they've been bouncing from eastern Canada to western Canada back and forth. In the past, it tended to stay out east. But that being said, the communities out here also need to put bids in. They've got, FCM's got criteria, so there was a stint when we seemed to, we're out west, or out east quite a bit, but also at that same point, the western provinces weren't putting bids in to host, so. With that, I will move to receive the FCM report that Glenn has provided for information.
Discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimous. Correspondence, none. Dallas Ekstrom.
We haven't had an FCSS meeting recently, so I have no report on that. Eagle Point Blue Rapids Park Council, we had our AGM last night. This is a very big and busy board, and AVPEC we chose our executive. AVPEC will be chairing the meetings again. I didn't prepare a report for this morning, never got home till about 10:30 last night, so that'll be down the road sometime. So, second meeting, it was a great meeting, thank you.
Donna?
West Central Airshed, we had the 30th anniversary. It was quite well attended. Cecil Anderson and Cliff Whitelock were presented with pictures for the work they did after the blowouts to get this going. And it was really nice. FCSS, no meeting. Eleanor Pickup, no meeting. TV District Community Learning. I don't know why it is always on. It is always on a day that I'm busy. So, no meeting. Foundation. Oh, well, yes, there was a meeting, and there's talk about a new seniors lodge, just very.
Taj Mahalish?
Well, no, well, some people want grandiose, and other people just want, but it's still in, like, just talking stage right now, so.
Is that it? You're all done? Glenn?
No, it's not the time to do that, I suppose. So the Yellowhead Regional Library, we had a virtual meeting yesterday. We got the finished plan of service done, but the biggest part of the discussion revolved, and I didn't know the history on this. 11 years ago, Yellowhead tried to raise the rates by $2 per capita, and it sparked quite a flurry of very angry people, including library managers. And with that, they lost some municipalities, and then some of those library managers tried to start up another regional library to compete with it. So at that time, 11 years ago, the board decided to lock in the rates for 11 years. They weren't going to raise them more than 2% every year. Anything above that had to be approved by the board. So the Yellowhead Regional Library has been running since that time, locked in those rates. And the rates are, what was they, $4.75 per capita right now. And what's happened before I got on the board, they've been dipping into the reserves just to keep the lights on, right? And the staff that were cut 11 years ago, they haven't really ever brought them back to keep things going. So the finance committee, I'm not part of that, but they came back with a recommendation that we increase that rate, not by $2, but by 85 cents per capita. So for here, it worked out to about just under $7,000. And while I'm okay with that, there's a lot of other municipalities that aren't, including Spruce Grove, because it would make such a big impact on them. So it's going to be a little bit of an issue here going forward, and they've been asked, well, it's basically they've asked the board to talk to their municipalities, which I'm doing now, to get a feel for where everybody is on this rate increase. So it would be going from $4.75 per resident to $5.60 if this goes. So we either do one big jump now, and then there wouldn't be any more jumps in the coming years, or else we kind of step it up slowly, just to bring everybody in slowly. So that would be an option too, but a phased approach is what they call it. And basically it's to see what everyone's tolerant. So if you could just share in or give me some ideas after I'm done with my reports, what the tolerance would be for increasing this rate would be. What else did I do?
Just, Glenn, before you move on there,
Sure.
is there the value, a $40,000 value, is what I would ask, because that's what we're gonna be paying approximately if you're saying the numbers you're talking about. With the 7,500 people times by the, whatever the rate is, that's about, approximately 40,000.
Well, like I said, we don't have the books at the Drayton Valley Library, Municipal Library. We don't have the book selection. So if we got rid of Yellowhead, we just wouldn't have the resources. It's too small of a building. So what we do is we use the Yellowhead Regional Library. Any book you want, basically, you can get. We can have it shipped in, and that's what they do. So they have the big library in Spruce Grove. When you order a book, it's put on a van, it's delivered here, and you get to use it, and then they pick it back up and they take it back and wherever to the next person it goes. So it's a lot of resource sharing. Plus, they do all of our, and that's what something they didn't do 11 years ago was they've added in the internet and the needs to control the security on that. So they've taken on those costs as well. So I'm not seeing a lot of splurging or excess waste at the Yellowhead Regional Library. They seem to run a tight ship with the minimal staff. But yeah, they've just been the pressure with the fuel price, the pressure with the inflation, the pressure now with the tariffs. It's come to a crunch time where either services are cut greatly, and that's going to be the decision. If we don't raise the rates, then it'll be the decision of what services do we cut from what we're doing now. And so yeah, that's why get an idea. Like I said, the way you guys tell me you want to go is the way I think I'll bring this, that's the way I'll vote for it. If you're not okay with this rate, if you'd rather see services cut, let me know now. And yeah, like I said, it impacts the Drayton Valley Municipal Library. It'll impact Breton as well. So what we decide here is our next meeting isn't until October. So if you want to stew on that, that's fine as well. Or if you want to just give me your opinion on where you're going.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, even if we left Drayton Valley, it'd still have access to Yellowhead Regional, and so would Breton, I would assume.
Yeah, but this isn't the Drayton Valley. This is Yellowhead.
I understand.
Yellowhead is who's raising the rates. It's not Drayton Valley.
No, but I'm talking about if we took our money and just gave it to Drayton Valley and Breton, okay, and they'd still belong to Yellowhead Regional. They still have access. Just because one entity leaves doesn't mean it kills it for everybody. So I'm just trying to think of a better
Oh, I
balance.
see what you're saying. That's an interesting, well, nobody is leaving right now.
No, I'm just saying if we left and we gave the money that we give to Yellowhead, we gave it to Drayton Valley and Breton, then,
Like, they couldn't run without.
no, but they'd still have access to Yellowhead Regional.
I don't know if that's, like I said, we were one of the first ones to sign on to the Yellowhead. When it first started, it was Brazeau County that put the seed money into the Yellowhead Regional Library. So there's a long history of us, like I said. It's only, for the most part, an increase of this would only see us, it'd be under $7,000, right? But I was hoping the conversation wasn't going that we were going to just pull right out of Yellowhead. It was whether or not we were going to support service cuts or support.
I'm just looking for another option, Glenn.
I would support the 85 cents.
Anthony.
Okay, so Noel, do you have a comment? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, the Yellowhead Regional Library Association supports many of the small libraries, more so than it does the bigger ones. The bigger ones have enough of their staffs or else have like Drayton Valley, for example, has an IT component, I believe, from the town that can help support the libraries. But it's the small libraries that get more IT support and various other supports that the bigger libraries perhaps don't need or have other accesses to. And if we pull out, as you're suggesting, Bart, it just means that those smaller municipalities are going to have to even pay more and put them even more in a difficult situation. So we could be ending up finding that, you know, we're putting the Bretons of the world, just to name one of them, even more of a higher cost situation. I would agree with paying this at the 85-cent increase.
Yeah, I wasn't saying we're pulling out, Anthony. It's kind of taking it a little far. What I'm talking about is looking at different options to know what the answer is, not necessarily making a motion to opt out of Yellowhead.
Yeah, so, yeah, like I said, you can definitely contact me later on with your thoughts on this. For the most part, Yellowhead Regional Library is one of the cheapest ones of all the regional libraries. Like I said, when they wanted to raise it $2 11 years ago, that was just to get them on par with everybody else. So they have struggled through the past 11 years by cutting staff and just keeping that as low as they can. They've just kind of hit a wall with it. But so on the next one, the Drayton Valley Municipal Library Board, there was no meeting, so I'll let that one go.
Anthony, you've got 4.
Recreation Board, no meeting. Agricultural Board is tomorrow, and we have, as you guys probably were told yesterday, Herbert Lau coming to speak on a growing system. And I guess council is invited as well, from what I understand. Municipal Planning Commission, we had to believe 3 subdivisions, as well as development permit request for Taverner land pit, or gravel pit. And that's where many of our questions came that I brought up earlier. And then Pembina Synergy Group, no meeting.
Kara?
We actually had a meeting last night, and this committee will be taking a pause until after the municipal election. The next meeting date's not till November. There's been an issue with recruitment. Like many volunteer organizations, we are down to 4 people left sitting there. The other piece to it is there's a lot of uncertainty with where the healthcare system is going and how much input and value this type of group has anymore, because we can't recruit for doctors. There's just so much stuff that we can't do. The other piece that's been a huge challenge is getting any information from either of the clinics and from the hospital. Word on the street is we are losing our site manager too as well, with no replacement. It was reported from our RPAP delegate that she is seeing this happening across the province, that site managers are not being replaced and then being managed out of the centralized location, which will further add to our issues at the local hospital. And our committee is one of, she said she's lost count now, that are just, they're kind of stuck spinning their wheels at the moment. So she was actually her suggestion that we take a pause, wait till after the municipal election, and then use this time to implore our connections to see if we can get some more interest strummed up. But, you know, I will be really frank with my words. A lot of people like to complain, but nobody wants to step up and do any of the work when the time comes. So this committee is a prime example of that. So anytime that anybody brings healthcare issues to me, I encourage them to join this group, but I haven't had much luck either. So we will be approaching some of the doctors that have and are retiring to see if we can get them on the group, because we think they'd have some valuable insight that they could freely speak their mind now and help us with some of the direction. But it feels like we've been running uphill for a number of years and just getting nowhere, because we've got clinics that don't want to talk to each other or give us information. And we have a hospital, the same thing, that we can't get information. We can't get them to come to our meetings. We can't get the PCN to come to a meeting to let us know what they're up to and how we can help. So it's been actually pretty frustrating, and I think everybody's really frustrated. So that being said, we're taking a pause. We're not going to throw the towel in completely, but we are just going to hold off and see what we can do over the next, I guess, 4 to 6 months.
In case you're all done there. So Alice, we had a meeting. We pretty much met our targets. Nancy's out busy basically doing a follow-up with all the people that did projects and stuff, and she's going out checking sites and stuff. I think she's out today as well. Warburg Seed Cleaning, they had one meeting, but had a conflict, so that was unfortunate. Technology and Innovation, Glenn, do you got the minutes on that one? We were gonna start sending the minutes, Rudy, to all of the counselors there. Did council get the minutes? Because instead of regurgitating it here,
As far as I know, they were sent. Yep.
they were sent? Okay. You never got them?
I hate this computer.
We could stop for lunch. 12 o'clock. Let's, do you think we can have it,
Do the joint recreation when we're done with the committees.
okay, just go on to the next meeting then. Oh, you got it there?
So the meeting was June 4th, 10 o'clock. We had a virtual delegation from MNP with Steve Kwasny, who's just recently been brought in as a partner with that company. He presented the completed sector development strategies and economic impact assessment with an analysis of industries, current and future industries, and where they are in the life stages in Brazeau County. And he also kind of shown us our role in the sector development with networking, advocating, promoting, and supporting the workforce development initiatives. He also broke out the value of production in Brazeau County using 2023 data in oil and gas, forestry, agricultural, and their economic impact. So in 2023, there was 1.6 million cubic meters of oil produced in Brazeau County, 2.4 billion cubic meters of natural gas that resulted in a $1.1 billion value. 300 million board feet of lumber are produced for a value of 139 million. 429 farms in Brazeau County had a production value of $33 million. They applied a strategic planning tool to our core industries plus emerging industries and critical minerals, data centers, and hydrogen opportunities. We've asked MNP to present this information to council. It was really good, and it should be shared with everybody, including the public. So they're going to be planning on that. The second delegation was from Revive Capital Partners, Paul Cairns, formerly of Ever, and Amber Brown. They presented information on the coming AI race, and they believe it will be won by those that prioritize clean energy and water positive usage for data centers. They would like to work with the county to position and showcase why Brazeau County would be an ideal data center hub and champion a different approach to it. If we partnered with Revive, they would seek out hyperscale investment, and this is done by Microsoft, Google. It's the big, massive data centers that will bring in $24 million a year in tax revenue, right? So it can be substantial. These data centers cost roughly $750 million each, taking 3 years to build, 250 people, 250 workers, and the size of the buildings are usually 150,000 square feet. That usually result in 45 permanent jobs. The tax collected from the data centers is lucrative, including $162 billion in tax revenue in 2023, or $126 billion worldwide in tax revenue in 2023. Some municipalities collect upwards of $25 million in property taxes from these facilities. It also provides our oil and gas industry with another customer and a way to sell energy worldwide by converting the energy into data without the needs for pipelines.
Thanks, Sam. Joint Recreation Master Plan, we haven't had a meeting yet, have we? No. Meeting dates,
Information?
discussion, all those in favor, thank you. Those opposed? Carrie, you voted? Yes. Okay. Cancellation of the council meeting, August 5th. Motion by? Okay. Discussion, all those in favor? You opposed, Dallas? Those opposed? Minister's announcement on July 1st to 24th. I saw some stuff on the computer there, possible sites. One was it's Cynthia Transfer Station. Did you get a chance to look at any of that? Rudy?
Reeve, no, I didn't. I know that Councillor Gunderson was working in my absence to kind of identify some sites along 621, but I don't know how that's progressed. I haven't gotten an update.
But the date is still for the 24th of July? Yes. Okay, and I'm speaking at that? National, Kara?
I move to authorize council's attendance at the minister announcement on July 24th at 11 a.m.
Discussion, all those in favor? Yes. National Indigenous Peoples' Day. That's on June 20th. That's coming up quickly, too.
Can I talk to that?
Go ahead.
So yes, I'd like to go to this for sure. I'd also like to be able to take some donuts to this. And they're expecting 500 kids. So I was thinking I could go there, I could take a table, I could set up with Brazeau counties and spend from 12 o'clock till 5 o'clock there. So I'll be looking to I'd like to authorize all the council's attendance, anyone who wants to go. And I'd also considering getting some authorization to spend some money to buy some donuts for it, right? So I'd be looking for $800, so.
Bannock Donuts?
No, just Drayton Valley Bakery donuts. I don't know, this is kind of a historic event. This is like a one-of-a-kind school. There's only been 3 of them in Canada altogether, so we should celebrate this however we can. And like I said, I think there would be value in providing something to the event. So I'll start by first, I authorize council's attendance to the National Indigenous Peoples' Day, June 20th, 2025 celebration. Did I not move it? Did I? Oh, I move to authorize council's attendance to the National Indigenous Peoples' Day, June 20th, 2025.
We have given them money before at other events. We gave money because I got complimented. They said you were the only county that gave money. Yeah, it was okay. It's a different one, but same idea. It was an Indigenous function. Okay, what do you want to do? All those in favor?
And then my further motion, like I said, authorize the purchase of 50 dozen donuts from the Drayton Valley Bakery for $800 with money coming from general operating revenue for the National Indigenous Peoples' Day.
50 dozen, so that's 600 people?
500 people, but yeah, then I've got enough for any of the adults and staff and volunteers that come by too. I don't want to be short.
Kara?
It sounds like a lot. Like, I think if they get a couple hundred people, I'd be surprised. This isn't the normal.
I asked Charlene Barehead how many they expected, and that's what they're making, enough burgers and hot dogs for 500 people. Whatever I don't use, I would definitely take to the Orman Herd's kitchen. I won't be eating them myself. So.
Yeah, because this isn't the normal, like the Métis Association. This is something different. So
well, I've been to the ones at the school. Remember the one at Frank Maddock High School?
They bring the schools in for that. Like this one, they're not doing that for. That's why I'm wondering.
They've invited the schools to come in, and so with the numbers they have, the email suggested 500 people. Right? I don't want to show up with 200 donuts and then not have.
I doubt you'd go through that many, but I would be more in favor of half of what you said, but I don't want to split hairs either, but it seems excessive.
Yeah, that may be a little, not everybody's going to eat, like I don't eat donuts.
I don't think I'm going to eat any either, but.
No, but I think you're trying to cover everybody, and not everybody does that.
No, it was just, like I said, I contacted the event organizer and I said, how many do you think are coming? And she gave me emails that the chain emails showing that that's the expected number of people is 500. So we could knock that down to 40 dozen donuts if that would be better.
Sure.
Or just give me like a budget of 800 and I'll get the 40 donuts and put in an expense, but
What's that?
up to 500?
Go ahead, Kara.
Up to $500. Would that be a friendly amendment? Doesn't change, you still want to buy donuts. The intent was you to buy donuts.
Okay, yeah, if we're short, we're short. I'll just put Kara there.
Tell
That's
them
why
it
we're
was
short.
Kara's fault and you
Yeah,
can send
if
them
that's
to
what
my
it takes to
house.
push it through, I'm willing to go, yeah,
Then I'll owe them a donut and a coffee.
okay.
Okay, I like
So
it.
she cares about people's health and not trying to kill them with donuts.
So I'll accept that friendly amendment.
So say that again, Glenn?
Amendment.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? Kind of cranky this afternoon here, aren't you? How about we, I'm hungry. Oh. Okay.
And I'm sure you've got farming.
There's always farming to do.
I know, that's why.
Okay, National Indigenous Day, budget discussions date, just somebody make a motion.
Yeah, I move to set the 2026 budget dates for November 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th from 9 AM to 3 PM. We don't know, you have to set them.
No, you see, you just said them, and
Well, it's,
okay, all those in favor? There, we got Dallas back. Carried unanimous.
I
No.
move to authorize up to 2 people from council, because the invitation is for 2, to the Rotary Club's 30th annual dinner, July 17th
That's
at
tonight.
5:30 PM. So up to 2 council members may attend. Sorry, up to 2 members of council, and
I
you
was
guys
I
can
was
decide.
asked to speak.
Okay,
Great, great.
no, 2. So my motion stands, so 2 people from council can go, so. I move to authorize up to 2 people from council to attend the Rotary Club's 30th annual dinner invitation for June 17th.
Discussion, all those in favor? So I usually give them an update to where we're at, our budgeting, our process.
So if somebody else wants to attend, he's already attended.
Yeah.
I'd like to add another meeting date before we're done, just because the ASB is having a meeting here tomorrow, and it is for that presentation from Farming Solutions, Indoor Farming Solutions, and I just want to make sure that the rest of the council can attend virtually. So I'd like to add, or I move to add 33G and presentation by Indoor Farming Solutions. Oh, with Hubert Law with Trust Bix Incorporated to the agenda.
Discussion, all those in favor? And that's tomorrow, what time?
So it'll be tomorrow at 9:20, and we'll get you the invite. So I move to authorize council's attendance to the June 18th, 2025 meeting at 9:20 a.m. by Hubert Law Indoor Farming Solutions.
And that'll be virtual on the screen,
Yeah,
so we can come here if we want to.
or at home or wherever, yeah.
All those in favor? Carried unanimous?
Yeah, that's what you...
All right, we're losing people. Did I miss one? Okay, what is F?
It's the barbecue,
Oh, Dane Lloyd Barbecue.
yeah. I move to receive for information. Council wants to attend, they can on their own. This is, you gotta be cautious with political
Yeah.
stuff. So,
All those in favor?
encourage council to attend, but on their own
Carried.
time.
Yeah, we don't fund political attendance. We don't, others do.
Well, we break for lunch and then we'll get our dinner and then come back here and we can go in closed and we'll have our lunch, have a working lunch.
Okay, that
I
sounds
like
good.
it.
So then we could,
As long as staff's
we
okay.
shouldn't need more than a half an hour, do we?
We
Is
need
that
about
a-
10 minutes to go get our food.
Yeah.
Come back here, motion to go in.
40 minutes, so 1 o'clock we'll be back. Seven,
What I'm suggesting is something different. We take 10 minutes, we'll dish up our lunch,
yeah,
and come back in here to move to go in closed and have it work, and eat our lunch while we go through in private.
okay.
Well, that's what I did lean over and ask if it was okay. That actually helps.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting back to order.
We've got quorum, we're good.
Got quorum.
Good idea.
All those in favor? Need a motion to go in closed for,
I move that Brazeau County Council go in closed session for the following: 34A, Township Road 474, FOIP. Oh, did we use a FOIP there? No. ATI, what was it called? ATIA 19? Section 30, okay, yeah, I'm on that one. And also, item 34B, which has been Municipal Partners Opportunity Update. ATIA, yes,
ATIA
Section 26.
discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimous. We'll call the meeting back to order. Any direction coming out of the in-closed session?
Some direction there, so I'll move to direct administration to investigate costs regarding the original option, one using the existing county right-of-way for Township Road 474 between Range Roads 54 and 55 to the 2026 budget discussions.
Discussion, all those in favor? You're in favor, Kara? Those opposed? So the motion is lost. Kara, Anthony, and Glenn were opposed. Nothing until you have a new council, and it'll probably be brought up again. All right, any other direction? Anthony?
I move to receive the latest information regarding the municipal partnership as information and further to decline the opportunity.
Discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimous.
I move adjournment.
Moves adjournment, discussion, all those in favor? Good.
Oh, who's going to Stampede?
Well, don't we have a meeting with TIA there?
Well, the only reason